On the very date, that is the 29th of May 2024. Across Africa, South Africa is going to be going to the polls, and we're going to be linking up with one of our correspondents from another media house down in South Africa to just bring us up to speed in regard to those particular polls and what is expected, how is the atmosphere, matters of security. There's been a lot of push and pull between pro-ANC and those who are not. We want to see if the wind of change that we have been observing in West Africa is finally going to blow down South Africa. Good morning once again. I'm Regina Manyara. We also have so much in store for you, including the very debate on Moka and Mira. But introducing the rest of the team, let's start off with the ladies. Let's go. Vivian, hi.
All right. Good morning, Regina. And you're looking really good in that blue, by the way.
Thank you very much.
All right. It is the 29th day of May, just 2 days for us till we wrap up the month of May. I hope that your month has been a good one. Now, today being a Wednesday, we'll have a lot in store for you. A lot has been happening. I mean, in the headlines, we have a lot of stories that we'll be looking into later on the show. But later on, we'll also be getting to talk about data protection. And I will be having with me the Data Commissioner Kenya, that is Madam Immaculate Kasait, and we'll try to answer a couple of questions, among one of them being how we would rate our data protection landscape at the moment. Currently, where are we at? We'll be looking at that, as well as many other questions concerning data protection. And then later on, I'll also have a conversation with one Marceline Nyabote, who is a human rights champion and activist. She will be our woman at the forefront today. You want to definitely stay tuned for all of that. Mike? Good morning.
Good morning, Vivian, and actually thank you so much for tuning in to KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe, and a lot is happening, and one of the things that are happening here in Nairobi is the African Development Bank annual meeting that is happening. Started on Monday, it's going through up to Friday, and alongside that, or alongside those lines, we'll be talking about leadership and governance in public finance management. I'll be having that conversation with Rodolphe Pegwewinde-Banchi, who is the executive head of economic and social governance program at ACBF, and we'll be having to talk about that topic in details, including the roles and responsibilities of financial leaders, especially in the public sector, and also the aspect of transparency in budgeting, and so much more. So you want to tune in to that conversation, which is coming immediately after the news. So keep it here. Ray?
Indeed, thank you very much. So before we speak, or rather look at what is happening down in South Africa on the day that South Africans actually take to the polls, let's bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines. And we start off with the controversy around Moka there. And before I forget, Vivian, another question that I would like you to put to Madam Immaculate Kasait in regard to matters of data protection is that what exactly is being done to secure personal data? You see, we have various social media platforms, and we are having individuals getting impersonated and trolled in these particular platforms. Does the Data Protection Office have, a working relationship with these particular service providers, so to speak, when you talk about these platforms that are already engaged here? We have Facebook, we have X, we have Instagram. Do they have a working relationship? And if one was to make a complaint, how do we escalate it? Because so much has been said. And I remember this is a debate actually that also took center stage on the floor of the House at some time, when members of Parliament was actually questioning the data protection laws and how effective it is, especially in light of, this push and pull when it comes to online bullying. Yes. Now, back to that story that I had mentioned, is that President William Ruto has engaged leaders of Mombasa, Kilifi and Taita Taveta on their banning of the sale of Moka in their counties. The leaders have so far agreed to participate in a stakeholder meeting convened by the Agriculture Ministry to address the matter, while at the same time, Moka farmers and traders in Embu have already secured a High Court suspension of the ban.
Head of State through his ex-account said he had engaged Coastal Governors Abdul Swamad Sharif, Gideon Mungaro and Andrew Medemi regarding their concerns on the sale of Moka that resulted in the ban on the sale of crop in Mombasa, Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties. Subsequently, the county bosses have agreed to participate in a meeting of all stakeholders to be convened by the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock this week, as was suggested by Embu County leaders on Monday. A meeting of the political leaders of the affected counties will be convened next week. Meanwhile, Embu High Court Judge Lucien Njuguna has temporarily suspended the ban affected by the coastal counties. The orders are to last till 8th July when the application by Moka farmers and traders in Embu will be heard and determined.
Tunasisi tupeleke njia yetu ya kusema ni njia ya kuajiri vijana wetu na pia ni njia ya kutafuta chakula yetu ya kila siku, na kuna watu wengi wameajiriwa na hii Moka.
The move by the coastal counties had sparked protests in Embu County, with leaders joining their residents in opposing the move. They welcomed the suspension as reprieve, saying the ban will render many jobless.
Indeed, the Moka debate is close to our hearts, given that this is a region that borders where I come from. Meru, we deal in Mira. Now we have Embu County there that is dealing with Moka. I'm sure we're going to have, a win-win situation for the leadership as well as traders who've heavily invested in the growing of that particular cash crop. Now, Parliament has been urged to strike out the proposed increased taxes on bread, industrial inputs and the 2.5% annual tax on motor vehicles. Speaking at a public hearing forum on the Finance Bill 2024, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya said the passage of the bill as is will lead to serious economic repercussions in months to come.
Planning Committee of the National Assembly during day one of the public participation of the Finance Bill 2024, stakeholders opposed the proposed introduction of 25% excess duty on vegetable oils and other food commodities, saying Kenyans are still facing the high cost of living.
Parliament should consider the morality of taxing food, and especially food, very heavily in this country. So it's not just that we are arguing for bread. I think Parliament should be especially cautious in a country where 30% of children under the age of 5 have shown persistent lack of food, which has led them to be stunted.
On the proposed increment of excess duty on telephone and internet data services from 15% to 20%, accounting professionals said this would slow the creation of digital jobs and e-commerce.
We feel that raising the excise tax to 20% will discourage use of online services and digital platforms.
On the controversial proposal to introduce a 2.5% motor vehicle tax, stakeholders decried motorists who are already paying other vehicle-related taxes, including vehicle import taxes, which are almost 50% of the car's value.
Our thinking is that this tax should not exist, but if you decide to go about it, we think 2.5% of the value of an asset every year is too high. So what you should do perhaps is to consider it as a lump sum tax, which is to establish a simple amount. It is simple to administer.
Manufacturers through the Kenya Association of Manufacturers discouraged the introduction of new taxes on raw materials, saying if the new taxes are approved, some industry will be forced to shut down.
60 sack manufacturers in Kenya, 3 of them have gone down. East African Packaging was the latest to go down a month ago. We have 3 remaining. With this bill, the way it was crafted, these 3 will be wiped out. So it will become a net importer.
KRA wants to push the target. Treasury is pushing them to push the target. So by the time now the bill is coming to us, is an extrapolation of if you change this percentage here, how much does that change?
Due to unsustainable and too high cost of production.
And today we're going to be having a follow-up of that particular debate on matters Finance Bill 2024. Remember, this is a proposed draft of the Finance Bill 2024 that is going to inform how government is going to rake in revenue and how it intends to spend it for the financial year 2024-2025. And the financial year that you're currently in lapses at the end of June. So we are likely to see this quite a shake-up in as far as the tax policy is concerned, coming at a time when government has promised to have a tax policy that is intact at least for 3 years. We'll be keeping tabs on that. To matters health, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers is demanding a sit-down with both arms of government to resolve an ongoing strike. The clinicians are demanding a review of salaries for universal health coverage, UHC clinicians, risk allowance, and the absorption of a section of their lot on permanent basis. The union's national chairperson, Peterson Wachira, while leading protests alongside Coast Chapter members in Mombasa, called on the Council of Governors to negotiate an amicable return to work formula.
For 58 days, clinical officers have stayed away from their workstations, demanding that the government heed their irreducible minimums. Out of 10 areas of concern, the clinicians say 3 are yet to be addressed, and there seems to be no progress.
We only require 3.5 billion for the UHC staff. And the last thing is about the interns. Their salary was reduced by more than 50%. There is a structure that was provided by the Public Service Commission. It must be adhered to.
On Tuesday morning, Coast Chapter officers drawn from Mombasa, Kilifi and Kwale marched from the Coast General Hospital to protest the issuance of show cause letters to the Mombasa cadre.
Tumesajiliwa na kwa hivyo tuko na haki ya kwenda mgomo na kupigania haki zetu.
As far as Kilifi is concerned, we have had negotiations with the employer, the county government, but still they are non-committal.
Tutaenda kufile contempt of court orders na tutafile kwa yule mtu ambaye ameandika hiyo barua.
Led by the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers National Chairperson Peterson Wachira, the professionals called on the county boss to heed, listen and act and take the message to the Council of Governors.
We are open to consultations. We are opening to listen to the grievances of all our workers, and we'll find a solution together.
Budgetary allocation is nothing that is too big for the government to handle. We only require around 900 million, not even a billion per year.
Wachira further urged Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumisha to negotiate a reasonable return to work formula that will end the stalemate.
CS Nakumisha is the one who is supposed to bring the Council of Governors together. They go before the Treasury and they secure that budget to pay that money. And she has not sat with us for the 58 days we have been on strike.
Juni Karisambele from Mombasa County.
And today marks the 59th day of that particular strike. We'll keep tabs. President William Ruto says the new university funding model is working as expected. Speaking after meeting vice-chancellors from the country's public universities and constituent colleges at State House Nairobi, the president said that in the next 3 years, public universities will no longer grapple with financial problems.
And our sustainer, it is to you that we come this morning.
The Tuesday morning meeting saw various university vice-chancellors and principals of constituent colleges congregate at State House Nairobi. The agenda was to discuss the status of higher education driven by the new financing model. The head of state reiterated his administration's commitment to increase budgetary support to the institutions. The university dons confirming that the new model is working, and President William Ruto committed that in 3 years, the model will sort out the financial challenges facing universities. The president stating that under the model, learners from vulnerable and extremely needy families have equal opportunities accessing university education. Needy students will receive government scholarships of up to 53% and loans of up to 40%, while parents will only pay 7% of the total cost of the university education. Those joining TVET institutions will receive government scholarships of up to 50% and 30% in loans. Their households will pay 20% of the cost. The president later held talks with the Minister for State of the United Kingdom for Development and Africa, Andrew Michel, to develop new partnership to address emerging challenges as both countries explore new opportunities.
To the corridors of justice, where the widow of late former Judicial legislator George Thuo has asked the court to consider that her husband did not die of natural causes when sentencing the 6 convicts found guilty of his murder. The defense counsels had pleaded with the court to consider treating their clients as victims of circumstance. Now, trial judge Rosalyn Korir has set the 21st of June as the date when she'll pronounce her ruling on the number of years the convicts will serve behind bars. Details of this in our in our Scales of Justice segment with Ruth Wamboi.
Judy Thuo wants the killers of her husband to pay for their actions.
For 10 years I have come to this court, my brothers and sisters, so that we can have closure. We have remained for 10.5 years, and we have not from the grave, and that is not right.
She has asked the court to take into consideration the circumstances under which the former Judicial Moka lost his life when it finally sentenced the 6 convicts on 21st June this year. The defense has, however, pleaded for leniency with the lead counsel, Dr. John Kaminwa, arguing that the 6 were victims of circumstance.
Whatever role Paul Wanaina played technically in the death of his friend Honorable Thuo must have been very minimal.
He is simply a victim of geography and time. That at some point in time, he sat on a particular table. That's all that puts him in the circumstances he finds himself today.
Justice Koril on April convicted club owner Paul Wainaina Boyo, Thuo's aide Christopher Lumbasio Andika, Andrew Karanja Wainaina, Samuel Kuriangugi, Esther Ndinda Mulinge, and a waiter Ruth Watahi Irungu over the death that took place at Pokey's Club in Thika over a decade ago. Thuo was found dead and upon medical examination was found to have taken a poisonous drink which had been put into his beer. And a Kiambu law court has given the go-ahead a prayer by a homicide DCI officer to detain a police officer for 14 days at the Kiambu police station pending investigations over the murder of a U.S. embassy staff shot dead in the wee hours last Sunday outside a Kiambu club.
And it is only prudent that he be detained for that time, when we are very sure we shall be coming back with a very conclusive report.
Through an affidavit made by CPA Ruben Mwaniki from the DCI headquarters before Kiambu Magistrate Wanjiru Nganga, he sought to be given orders to detain the officer. Dennis Mwai Irungu is the prime suspect in the murder of Anthony Njomo Kiono. Now, deceased noting he needed time to gather more evidence and witnesses to be included in the case.
A life was lost. It is for these reasons and in the interest of justice I am satisfied that the application dated the 28th May 2024 has merit and is therefore allowed as prayed.
That quick summary from the court takes us to matters business. As you've heard there, Ruth Wamboi says June 21st, then the 6 who have already been convicted of the murder of late George Thuo, who findings show that he was indeed poisoned, will know their fate. How many years are they going to serve behind bars? We talk business. Small and medium enterprises in Africa require 2.7 trillion shillings in capital funding to remain afloat. The Association of African Development Finance Institutions President Thabo Tamane says there is need for policy formulation to de-risk the SME sector to attract more private equity. Small businesses are the backbone of many economies in Africa, providing employment to millions on the continent.
Startup incubation agencies say they need more than 15 billion shillings this year to support and bankroll small and medium enterprises in the country. The Kenya Development Corporation, Agriculture Finance Corporation, and the Kenya Industrial Estates say there is need for more funding to capitalize startups that have been affected by COVID-19 and climate change.
Trying to do is also move away from straining government in terms of the fiscal budget. We know the fiscal space is very small, so we've been trying to do a resource mobilization outside allocation of budget.
The government has already earmarked 500 million shillings towards AFC, and we anticipate to be able to access them before the end of this financial year. And next financial year, we are looking at 1 billion shillings. All this money is coming as part of the 10 billion shillings which was promised by His Excellency the President.
The Association of Africa Development Finance Institutions say the continent needs 2.7 trillion shillings for onward lending to startups. The association is urging African governments to consider policy review to de-risk the SME sector and attract more private equity.
We need to be able to have one message around our views of how we look at the private sector, because private sector are partners that are not necessarily competitors in this particular space. And we must accept that as government-owned entities, we cannot be able to fill the gap alone.
Lenders and underwriters have been encouraged to come up with financial and insurance packages to assist in lending and insulate startups against business risks.
Our mission as the association is to basically say to the private sector, you are our partners, come here. We will, as a DFIs, de-risk investments, and you can actually co-fund those particular investments.
Kenya is collaborating with neighboring countries to address adverse effects of climate change, especially on pastoral communities. ASAL's and Regional Development Principal Secretary Konchellah Harsama says the collaboration targets to promote sustainable development by facilitating information sharing.
Kenya lost over 2.5 million livestock last year to drought, which was termed the worst drought experienced in the country in 4 decades. Among the most affected were pastoralists who mainly rely on livestock. The Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock is collaborating with county government and development partners in rolling out strategies and measures to transform the livestock value chain through market development, range management, and feedlot development.
I take cognizance that development of ASALs cannot be realized by government alone, but requires collective effort from all partners.
A USAID-funded cross-border community resilience program has been rolled out in arid and semi-arid areas in Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan, and Somalia.
Kenya has forged partnerships with state and non-state actors to consolidate resources and inspire development. For effective coordination, partnership coordination framework, that is PCF, and resilience programming framework, RPF, for the ASALs have already been developed.
IGAD has developed 8 initial clusters to facilitate the cross-border cooperation for the Horn of Africa region's 70% arid and semi-arid lands.
Building resilience in the IGAD region demands robust partnerships and sustained investment. By engaging diverse stakeholders, securing long-term funding, and enhancing collaboration among member states and development partners, we can foster a resilient and sustainable future.
To sports, where Kenya under-18 boys and girls soccer teams are back in the country after an outstanding performance in the International Schools Federation Football World Cup in Dalian City, China, where they were termed as an eye-opening experience that will be helpful as they build their football career.
Kenya had a tournament to remember, the International Schools Federation Football World Cup, where the girls soccer team finished first runners-up after losing 5-4 in penalties to host China. The team's highlight of the tournament came when they beat Brazil 3-1 in the semi-final stage, a win that head coach Fred Serenge says will live to inspire the squad.
Personally, I'm a lover and I'm a fan of Brazil. But on that day, I was the opponent of Brazil. And I want to say, it turned tables, it was miraculous. It was in style. We didn't just beat them, we thrashed them.
Nimekuwa top scorer, nimefurahia, nimeachieve vitu mingi, nimefurahia. Ilikuwa game tough, tulikutana na Brazil, knockout. tulikuwa tumejua ni timu ngumu, lakini tulipambana.
Kila timu ilijipanga, watu walikuwa ready, hata sisi pia tulikuwa ready. Tulijua tutakuwa washindi, but hatukumanage. Penalty si ya mtu. Hii inakuanga luck, but luck haikuwa kwetu. Mimi nimefurahia sana kwa sababu tuko na experience sana.
The boys team, on the other hand, finished in 15th position overall. They finished second in Group F that comprised Uganda, Benin and Chinese Taipei, a result that relegated them to classification matches where they beat Aspire from Qatar and Czechia 4-0 and 6-1 respectively to finish the competition in 15th place out of 35 teams.
We expected more from the tournament, but the experience was good. It was great and it was also fun.
Nimeona ni mwanzo mzuri kwamba tukiweka vijana wetu pamoja tuamini kwamba wanaweza. Sidhani ipo siku yote ambayo Kenya imewahi kuwapiku mataifa kama vile Qatar, Czech. Nafikiri ulikuwa ni ushindi wa kuwatia moyo sana.
The championship served as a springboard to the budding soccer talents expected to flourish in years to come.
We have a team, and this is a sign that the future of Kenya in sports is.
Congratulations to the boys and girls. Now, the National Olympic Committee of Kenya has partnered with Deloitte East Africa in a movement beyond the field of play. Now, the partnership will start with the upcoming 2024 Paris Olympic Games through the 2032 Games in Brisbane.
The partnership between NOC and Deloitte is intended to professionalize their management and operation system in their strategic delivery as Kenya prepares to send a strong contingent to the Paris Olympic Games, as well as plan for future events which include 2026 Youth Olympics in Dakar, the Youth Commonwealth Games and the Commonwealth Games.
Faith Kipyegon. You cannot be serious.
NOC President Dr. Paul Tergat hailed the partnership, saying they will benefit a lot from the expatriates in their endeavor to commit to high levels of professionalism and accountability.
Our resolve and purpose have been to deliver our services specifically to our athletes and affiliates by enabling them to succeed.
He added that the partnership will also help NOC enrich their strategic goals and contribute to building a better world through sport. Deloitte East Africa CEO Ann Murata said the collaboration with NOC will further boost the confidence among the partners, stakeholders and athletes to advance the future of sport in Kenya.
Our team will provide wide-ranging management and business consulting capabilities. So I look forward to the future of Olympic sport in our country and enhancing our national heritage and flying our flag high.
We'll be very strategic on what we do. We'll want to do something which is transformational. We want to do something which has an impact. And we want to do something which can leave a legacy.
Well, now that puts a cap on matters and news this morning. Be sure to log in onto our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. But before I leave this particular position, let's have, we are going to be heading down to South Africa, one of the richest African states, that is South Africa, is going to the polls, and we are joined by our very own, you see, journalism is global and it transcends. So as you can see from my screen, we have a link there with Kurt. I don't know, maybe she could pronounce her name better than I could, given that is Kate Bartlett. I hope I got that correct. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Kindly bring us up to speed with how it looks like now as South Africa takes to the polls today.
Okay, good morning. Well, polls are going to open in about an hour. It's still very early here. But polls are opening in an hour, and 28 million South Africans are registered to vote. The question is how many of those will turn out, because in the last general election in 2019, there was quite a low turnout. There was some voter apathy, but obviously political parties are hoping for a high turnout today. This is being called one of the most pivotal polls in 30 years of South Africa's democracy. In fact, the most pivotal poll since the end of apartheid. And that's because the governing African National Congress that has been in power since the end of apartheid is predicted to lose its absolute majority, to get under 50% for the first time in these elections.
Go back to the 2019 statistics. From where I stand, I look at 2019, ANC garnered 58% of the votes, and now you're saying this is quite a pivotal election where now that particular party that has been in place since the end of apartheid might actually lose. But then there are issues that have been brought up as South Africans take to the poll. The issue of unemployment seems to really reverberating, and maybe those who are in other parties other than ANC, have they come up with manifestos that speak to this?
Yes, basically everybody's campaigning with unemployment as their key issue across manifestos, including the ANC, which continues to promise to create jobs. It's a huge a huge problem here. Unemployment at some of the highest levels in the world, currently at about 33% countrywide, and then the youth unemployment is about 44%. So almost 1 in 2 young people are unemployed. So this is a huge issue. A lot of people will be voting for the party that they hope can help with that problem. Other issues on the ballot, of course, will be government corruption. People are tired after scandal in government here, graft scandals. And another big issue, of course, will be the electricity crisis that South Africa has been having for years now. But it got particularly worse in this last year with almost daily, what they call here load shedding, which is government blackouts planned blackouts to ease pressure on the grid. So that will also be people will be voting about that as well.
Okay. Now, before I let you go, Kate, we had a change, or rather we saw something when it comes with the former South African leader, that is Jacob Zuma, who was actually barred from running as member of parliament there. And he spoke to various media saying that this was a bias. As a journalist, I know we are not allowed to be biased, but let me say, if this particular turn of events, when it comes to the vote of confidence that South Africans have on Jacob Zuma, given that he was a former president, and now with ANC, as we've said, where they are on the red, do you think it's going to play a role, him being barred from not running for office overall?
I think his new party, Umkhonto weSizwe, or MK as they're known, will definitely play a role in this election, because even though the Constitutional Court barred Jacob Zuma from running for office, given the fact that he had a criminal conviction a few years ago for contempt of court in a corruption case, if you've had a conviction within 5 years, you cannot run for a seat in parliament, and that's why the Constitutional Court ruled against him. But his party was quite nonplussed about it. They said he's still the face of our party. His picture's still going to appear on the ballot, and he is still pulling the strings for this party. So, I don't know if he ever intended really to be a backbencher in parliament after having been a president, but he's certainly the driving force behind this new party. And polls are predicting that the party could do quite well in one province particularly. That's KwaZulu-Natal province, which is where Jacob Zuma comes from, and retains a large amount of popularity there.
Mm-hmm. Just looking at some of our feedback that we're getting from this conversation, let me just read it out to you. Crispinos Adams says that I love this man, President Jacob Zuma. He could be a better president outside ANC, and is that he's saying that ANC must be the problem and has to be defeated. Those are totally not representative of our views, but this is just some views that are coming in courtesy of this particular live broadcast. Then one last observation: what role are the youth expected to play in these particular polls?
Well, the youth could be a change maker in this election, a game changer, because we have a very young population, like you in Kenya as well, I believe, a very young population. And a lot of these young people never knew apartheid. So they don't have this kind of ingrained loyalty towards the ANC that older people who remember the struggle against white minority rule might have. So a lot of youth I've spoken to are thinking of voting for alternative parties, but there's also the worry that the youth just won't turn out at all. Other young people I've spoken to said, our vote doesn't make a difference. We can't be bothered, really. So it's to be seen. If the youth turned out in their numbers, it could be a game changer.
Well, thank you very much, Kate Butler there, all the way live from Joburg, as 28 million South Africans take to the poll, a poll that you've already termed and unpacked for us, that pivotal, that we may actually see ANC, losing its majority, looking back at statistics in 2019, where they only garnered 58% of the votes there. Thank you for that update. Thank you, Kate. We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening. We wish you a happy voting. Totally no chaos. We want it to be peaceful and mad with no irregularities. Now we head you back to take you back to KICC. Remember, we have been keeping tabs on the African Development Bank Summit there, and we're going to be joined by Alan Aoko and take you through the rest of the programming. That puts a cap on Matters News. Now over to you, Alan. Good morning, Alan.
Yes, indeed. We are at the annual meetings by the Africa Development Bank. This is the third day, and big things have been happening. Just in case you are away or under a rock somewhere, annual meetings have been happening here in Nairobi, headed by the African Development Bank, bringing together stakeholders from all over the continent just to look at how Africa is dealing with its financial architecture. And the globe has also been given a kind of a glimpse of what is happening here. We have seen partners even from around the globe, especially from the western part of the globe and also probably the eastern part of the globe, just coming to see how they can chip in the conversation. Remember, this is not just about financing, it's about impact to the people. And what we've been seeing in the last 2 days is a conglomeration of all stakeholders, including captains of industries, presidents, heads of governments, just coming through. And maybe just to give you an update, because it's also very early, and the program does start at around 9 a.m. today. President Ruto has arrived, yes. President Ruto is in the building here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. We're just waiting to see how, of course, the protocol will move to, rearrange the program a bit. But of course, the President of the Republic, Dr. William Ruto, is here in the building, ready to kick off the opening ceremony of this annual meeting. This is the annual meeting that has been awaited for quite a while, as we, try to converse about how we can impact society. For example, one of the impacts that we are looking for is small businesses, entire businesses. Also, not just businesses, but infrastructure projects. We have seen a lot of countries incur a lot of debt just to have the infrastructure in place, which is important for economic growth. We can tell you that before the meeting started, we can say on Sunday, we saw the team from Africa Development Bank just tour some of the projects that we have around the country that has been co-funded with the government of Kenya and the bank, just to see the impact that it has brought. For example, looking at the Kenol Marua Highway, which is part of the Trans-African Highway that starts all the way from Egypt, Cairo to Cape Town in South Africa. Imagine, Kenya has only 10% of this highway, but it's very critical in logistics and movement of people. The team went there and looked at the road, and it is now complete. The 20 billion shillings road is complete, and they're just assessing the impact of this particular road, just going to show where the financing goes when it comes to impacting the people on the ground, because you may say that perhaps this meeting is only for the bigwigs, only for the banks and all these DFIs, which you can call the development financing institutions, but it does go to impact people on the ground. Of course, the team here is ready to give you all the information as we go into the day, as we assemble, Regina. This is just a taste of what is to come, because today is the main day. The president is here. He's here to welcome his colleagues from other parts of the world, and we will be showing you live what is happening here. Of course, these are big conversations. We're talking about climate financing. We're talking about, redefining how we finance our packages, our projects continental-wide. And we shall be keeping tabs for you, just to make sure that you are in touch with what is happening, especially you, our viewer. Of course, Regina, we shall also link up with you later if you'll still be with us, but for now, back to you.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get a taste of the best in entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out. Who is the man in this one?
And the laughter.
Hii wigi umevaa kichwani. Sisi wakati tulikuwa tunapishwa tunapewa mheshimiwa.
Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow. Yeah!
We are the full package.
Oh, yes.
And Kenya's watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I'd be very careful the way you address me, given that I literally have your life in my palm.
People lose hands and palms every day.
Be careful you don't get yourself in that list.
People. Why can't you give Solomon a chance to speak out? You talk like angry monkeys. And you, when are you ever going to learn to listen?
Okay. If you know you took my juice, it is not that expensive. It is only 10 bob.
Why is this Angela face laughing?
Don't mind her, Tell us the good news, Murume, You know some of us need something to cheer us up.
Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe. Now we shift gears from news. Now we talk about enhancing leadership and governance in public finance management. And to help me in this conversation in studio, I'm joined by Rodolphe Banshi, who is the head of economics and social governance program at Africa Capacity Building Foundation. welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well.
Yes.
And you?
I'm good.
Wonderful.
So the first question I would ask, why Kenya? Why Kenya? Why did you choose Kenya to come and launch this program?
Thank you so much, Mike, for inviting us. On behalf of the Executive Secretary of ACBF,
yes.
I would like to thank your channel for inviting us to this studio this morning.
Yes.
Why Kenya? Kenya is one of the countries in terms of innovation, in terms of reform the PFM sector is doing very well. And we feel like it is very important for us to support this country in the train of building a strong PFM system, public financial management system. So what we want to do here is to continue to support the government work in this area, but also to build a momentum that other countries can see and come to learn, from Kenya experience, because we feel like Kenya is effective in this area.
Yes. So speaking about public finance management, what are the principles that govern this aspect, especially when it comes to spending public funds?
In the public management system, there are some rules and principles that guide, and you are right. And the most important thing is good governance around public finance management system and transparency. And to be able to do that, it's helped the government to, let me say, build trust among citizens, so that when they pay tax, that they see that tax is used to improve their life in the development agenda of the countries. This means that when they pay tax, it can support social service to citizens, and if they see this happening, it gives them more incentive to pay tax. This is very important in terms of accountability, because citizens need to know also what the government is doing with their money. This means that there should be a kind of public access to all the financial management statement, so that citizens will see clearly what the government is doing with their money to build more trust.
Is there an approach to that? Because in most cases you'll find people are not aware of how governments are using their funds, and that's why sometimes you find there is reluctance to pay taxes. Is there a way to deal with that?
Yes, there is a way, because there are some rules in terms of budget, let me say, budget development and or budget making. Because in the process of budget making, you need to ensure that your budget is aligned with your national development or your policies, and which are also linked to, let me say, that your offer as, when you are running to be a president in the country. This means that you set some goal and you sell let me say, your development agenda, and the citizen buy it. That's why they elect, the authority in the country. So based on that, you design your budget to address these challenges and to be able to serve your citizens in a better way, to deliver, let me say, a qualitative public service. And based on that, then you need to involve them in the budget preparation process, to make them be aware that their needs have been addressed during the budget process. So this is the beginning of the budget.
So the idea is to...
Citizen budget?
Yes. The idea is for citizens to see their money work.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And then if they saw it at the beginning, that the budgets have been, let me say, adopted at the parliament, taking into account, their needs in terms of their priority. At the end, they should see also what have been done from what have been decided to be done. And this means that you need to share the budget, to the citizen through different kind of channel. It could be, the good practice say that you should put it on your website, and you should design also citizen-based budget for them to see clearly what are the budget line addressed to each area of their interest. It could be also put in some local language so that, I don't know if you have some citizens in Mombasa who don't speak English, they can see the information at least and get informed. At the end of the budget implementation, you also need to do a report and share it with the citizens so that they can see how the budget has been used and more effectively to address their need.
Yes.
And this is very important for the citizens.
It should be a citizen-oriented process.
Exactly.
Now,
very important.
Let's talk about the importance of public finance management, not just its importance, but excellent usage of public finance.
Let me say that the importance of public finance management is, let me say that if you want to know what are the priority of policy in the country, look at the budget. The budget is the key information to say, because if I say I want to put health as a priority in my development, then the budget, let me say, proportion that have been allocated to health will be the bigger in the global budget. And if you say that you want to put education as a priority, then you will see that the budget allocation in the education will be the biggest share. And this means that the budget shows the priority. And you cannot talk about the public financial management without the budget. And in the public financial management is a system, starting from the, because the budget is linked to tax, the economy. So you cannot take the tax if you don't have a strong economy. That's why the budget preparation will start with the macroeconomic forecast to see what could be the economic growth and how the budget can be aligned to it so that we can have tax not being a burden for the citizen, but the right tax based on the economic growth to be able to support the development of the country. Yeah, that's very important.
Even as we talk about that, talk about how the public sector now needs to ensure they have the right people in places of leadership to ensure that there's effective public finance management.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Before going to this question, if you allow me to come back on our organization, ACBF. ACBF is the African Capacity Building Foundation and established since 1991 with around 14, 15 countries will start with the support of some international organizations like the World Bank, AFDB, African Development Bank, UNDP. And since its inception with the mandate, I need to come back on the mandate, to build human resource capacity, but also institutional capacity to support the African country development process. And if you remember, in 1991, this was the year of the structural adjustment in country where they were suffering with the macroeconomic stability issues. And ACBF was, incepted to support country in this process because this time we found that Africa needs a strong capacity in macroeconomic management, to be in economic policy management, to be able to deal in its relationship with the international organization, but also to support their own development process. And since then, we have been able to train like 50,000 civil servants, across Africa. And we have been also able to establish 50 think tanks. And we are proud about one of the think tanks, which is the Kenyan think tank, KIPRA, which we support in its inception. And KIPRA is making a huge impact in the policy making area or evaluation in Kenya. And so right now we have 40 member countries who are part of ACBF. And the Minister of Finance are the member of the Board of Governance of ACBF, let me say, Minister of Economic and Planning and Finance. And then right now we have a new strategic plan with, under the leadership of Mr. Mamadou Biti, who is the Executive Secretary of ACBF. And with this new strategic plan, we have 4 key impact areas. The first key impact area is climate change. And climate change, as you know, is one of the biggest issues currently. And we have seen it, what's happened recently in Kenya and across the world. And we want to support capacity building of all the stakeholders in the public sector, but also globally, to be able to address, to mitigate the climate effect. And then we have the second key impact area, which is related to agribusiness. And you know, most of the African citizens, more than the half percent, are, let me say, working in the agricultural sector. And if we do not increase the add value of, let me say, the agricultural sector, we will not be able to have food sovereignty. We will not be able to increase our growth. And under this, we'll be supporting. The third key impact area is trade. And under trade, we want to support the free trade agreement established among the African countries at the African Union level. So we'll be supporting SMEs capacity and also all the Minister of Trade and the government to be able to align with this new agreement that's been established in the African level. And the last key impact area is the economic and social governance, and which is a traditional area of ECBF, supporting the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Planning in terms of capacity building. And under this economic and social governance, we want to strengthen the economic and governance management in countries. And for this, we have three strategic objectives. The first one is to enhance evidence-based policy formulation, you know, because your policy to be effective and address development challenges, we need to base it on data and to be able to forecast what are the current issues and what are the current level and how can we set some target that can be measurable. And on this, we want to continue to build the capacity of National Planning Institute, but also think tank. And we are thinking also of strengthening the planning, national planning ministers in civil servant capacity. And we have the second objective, which is related to increasing domestic revenue mobilization. This is crucial in Africa if you want to build a sustainable development. You cannot count on external funding. You need to count on yourself. And right now, most of the countries in Africa are having some issue to get access to external funding because this is also there's not enough window in this area. And mostly, I think it's crucial for us to learn to count on ourselves and to develop our, let me say, our countries based on our own resources. And this is where we want to strengthen the capacity of tax administration, to strengthen the capacity of tax, official, but also tax policy unit. And we have the third strategic objective, which is to strengthen the PFM the public financial management performance through leadership, capacity development, leadership and governance. And this, why we are doing this, and this will bring me to your question, and to say that we found that in terms of technical skill, sometimes you will see that most of the high level, let me say that technically in Africa, we have been able to support it, and we have seen that technically we are very well in different areas right now. I think that Africa can be proud of its civil servants in this area. But we need to continue to increase our performance. We need to continue to increase, to improve our skills. And we found that there is a need, there are some gaps in terms of soft skills. Soft skill, why soft skill? In terms of strategic management, in terms of change management. And change management has been identified as one of the challenges in public financial management in country. How do you deal with citizens? How do you deal with your civil servant to bring new mindset in terms of being more transparent, being more public service oriented, and being able to negotiate better in this sector. And we found that there is a need to fill this gap because there is no offer in this area currently. And as in the African Capacity Building Foundation with this mandate, we found that we need to address it. This is why we have this new program called Enhancing Leadership and Governance in Public Finance Management for to increase this sector performance, which is really goal-oriented in delivering right and qualitative public service to citizens.
Yes. What would you say has been the impact of these capacity building initiatives in the context of better public finance management?
What could be the impact? Under this program, what we are looking is to have a strong leadership capacity of the senior official in the public finance management sector. This will guide us to improve the public finance management reform in countries. Because when you see through some evaluation tools, assessment tool, there are some areas in public finance management system that need to be improved. And this is, let me say, one of the tools called PIFE, is a public finance management and accountability evaluation tool. And on this, we found that there are some areas, specifically on the oversight area, there are some need to improve in most of the African countries. And at the end of this program, we want to see some improvement based on these targets, let me say that, on these indicators. How are the public financial oversight being improved in country? How the leadership capacity bring more strong reform in the public finance management system? And at the end, how this increase the public service delivery quality in countries.
Yes. What would you say are the roles or responsibilities of financial leaders in within the public sector, especially when it comes to instilling financial discipline, providing guidance to policymakers, and all in the aspect of maximizing value for government expenditure?
Yeah. I think the public finance management system play a key role on that, and each actor of the system have this role. And one thing we found that need to be strengthened in country is how do the system actors see the bigger picture? Because to be able to do that, to add value in the money, or use every unit of your currency, and to make sure that this will have the result that you designed for. And this is crucial. This means that you need to have a good budgeting process. How do you forecast? How do you set your target and policies? And how do you evaluate the right budget to be affected to this? If you miss this process, then at the end it might be difficult. And then if this is set in the budget implementation, how do we ensure that there is a sound management of public fund in terms of how it's been used? How do we avoid wasting the public funding? Yeah, this is very, very important. And how do we audit? How do we control and audit? This process to make sure that what has been planned to meet this target have been done by those who are supposed to manage, policies. And at the end, and how do we, let me say that, evaluate or appreciate what has been done with each funding? And we have this system across Africa in the public management system, but sometimes they work in silos. And because of these issues, it's very difficult to be able to reach the goal. Then under this program, we want to bring what we call the policy dialogue around the public finance management issues so that country can learn from each other. And this is what we want to do under this program. to make sure that at the national level, the actor of the PFM are talking to each other to be able to address together in the bigger picture for, let me say, public service delivery for citizens in countries.
Yes.
This should be the focus.
Yes. And still, on the aspect of transparent budgeting, it is important when it comes to enhancing trust in government institution. Talk about its benefit briefly and how it contributes to the willingness of people now in paying taxes. Yeah.
No, I think that's the transparency is key, because if we took a relationship between two people, if I give you my money, you should be accountable and share with me what have you been doing with this, and what you get is if we agree on what should be done by this. And so transparency is very crucial. And we hear in countries that citizens saying that, oh, we are paying tax, but we cannot see how tax is used for. And sometimes they will say that the government is wasting our money. But this is due to sometimes the lack of transparency, or let me say, or accountabilities in terms of giving the right back, what have been given to you, how have been using it, and how was the, let me say, the result for using the public fund. And this is why the budget reports need to be published so that the citizen would see it, but there should be a clear and effective communication. This is also one of the skills that we are looking to build under this program, the communication skill. How do we communicate with our citizens in terms of us being a leader in the public finance management system? How do we communicate to give them the right information that their tax have been used, and they can. In some countries, you can see that they have a kind of a digital platform where citizens can trace the process of their tax being used for public service delivery. And this is very important. It's not only transparency, but it's to be also effective in using the public funding. This means that if I can pay my tax and make sure that I have social services, and I don't have to care about if my child is sick, who will be taking care of it, if the government's services are very effective to take care of my child. This gives also incentive. That's why the main goal of the public financial management should be respective, delivering qualitative public service to citizens. And if we are able to ensure this in the public policy implementation, then we will build a stronger trust among the citizens.
You talk about the aspect of enhancing soft skills now of public finance figures in terms of making sure that it leads to an improved public finance management.
Yeah. I think the leader that we need right now, as we say, to improve the public management performance, public financial management performance, is those who have this mindset of public service oriented. And this is something clear that we need to build now. The second aspect of the thing that I see to be able to improve the public management system is how do we have some values of integrity, serving our countries, some values about leading self, leading, let me say, the team.
Yes.
This is very important because we can be effective if we lead our team effectively. And the last thing is leading your organization and leading the ecosystem. And for this, you need to know your institution. You need to know the environment around your institution at the national level, but also at the international level, because the world is changing. We are in the global space. But how do you learn better in this area and adjust yourself to be able to serve? And this requires for you, if you take digitalization right now, you know, most of the country are undergoing, you know, transforming the public service, you know, the digital transformation of the public services. The public financial management sector is under this change currently. How leaders are getting adjust to this, adapt to this, to be able to improve the public financial management performance. So these are the areas we want to support, and at the end, we are sure that we will have some impact. You know? And to add, we would not be doing it just by already designing it. What we do is to go to countries to ask. We have some framework to evaluate what are your needs, and if you have the need, then we design something to address their needs.
Yes.
Thank you.
In your own perspective, why do governments in Africa need radical changes in the way they approach finance, public finance, how they manage public finances, and responsibly or, well, sustainably? Why do they need that radical change?
I think there is a need because the context requires us to have a kind of a transformative leadership approach. Because citizens right now, the citizens are requesting from, there is a change, mindset change among the citizens currently. And they have a high demand for accountability, a high demand for, let me say, performance in the public policies. And this requires us to adjust to this. And because also the world is interconnected, citizens learn from the best practice around the world. So how do we also take this in account and don't just be shy in our place? Just, we need to open to this new trend in terms of citizen demand, a new trend in terms of the world, the global evolution. And this is why we need to change this, to have a new mindset in terms of the public service, in terms of accountability, in terms of performance, so that citizens will be, because this is the utmost goal of the public finance management, is to have a qualitative public service delivery to citizens.
Yes.
I think that this is very important, but because also at the end, we need to develop Africa. We should not be, at the tail. Let me say that we need to lead now. And this is what the voice that we can hear among the young people across Africa. We should not remain the last. We need to move forward. This is the mindset that all leaders should have, that Africa need to be leading in many areas.
What about the aspect where financial leaders need to have, to understand how government works and also have effective communication skills so as to influence or contribute to shape policy in as far as public finance management is concerned?
Yes, this is something we hear also when we visit countries where that's what I'm saying, that we should avoid, working in silos. It should be a systemic approach, and we hear sometimes the line ministry that that the Minister of Finance is not knowing the challenges and addressing them effectively. And that's why this program would not just, limiting itself to the financial, to the PFM system for now. At the pilot phase, we want to work with the PFM system, like the financial leaders, but at the end, we want to cover the public sector. Because if we are talking about a new mindset of leadership, this should not be limited to one sector. And we feel like there should be a strong communication between these sectors, but there should be also a global leadership, management, leadership, views in the public sector. And this is why we are having this program who will be extended to the public sector, which we will call LEAPS, Leadership Excellence in Africa's public sector. Yes. If you have this global approach, then we'll have the same vision about how do we serve our citizens.
Of course, achieving effective public finance management is not a walk in the park. What would you say are some of the challenges that hinder that, and how can they be addressed?
The challenges will be related to, let me say, as I said, most of it will be how do we address communication? How do we address communication and between the stakeholder? This is something that we found it. This means that we need to have also a new mindset in terms of considering and valuing, let me say, the work of each actor in the system. I think that this is something that we need to address with this training. And above all, we need to have this strong leadership support from the government, from the ministers, for the implementation of this program. And I think that if we get their support, the challenges would not be a big deal because the program will be adjusted, to address them. Because also we will be doing what they found as the challenges to be addressed under this program. Yeah.
The aspect of external audit is very important, especially when it comes to public finance. What role does it play in reducing corruption and also leading to effective policy development, and also where citizens see value for their taxes?
Yeah. I think on this, the Supreme Audit Institution plays a key role. Let me say the internal audit institution also play a role in this. And for this, it's required to give them more, let me say, capacities. In terms of the technical capacities, but also in terms of their the independent autonomous. I think this is one independency. I don't know how to say that. This means that if they have the power to audit whoever need to be audited, and they have the right budget to do their work, this can improve, the oversight function, which is very crucial. Yes. And because those in charge of internal audit will be also able to address these challenges and to be able to see what are the risks in terms of public funding, let me say corruption or public fund wasting. And if they are able to identify it at the right way, at the right time, then we can avoid it. In terms of corruption, how do we address in terms of, let me say, in terms of regulatory ways, in terms of how the Public Finance Management Act is addressing this kind of issues. And if it's happened that there's no action to not make it work, and this needs to be also, that's why the justice system should be working on this also, to be able to avoid that people can just take public funds without any consequences. I think that the Supreme Audit Institution played this role in relationship with the justice to be able to address that. And we have civil society organizations who are playing a crucial or a key role in this area. How do we strengthen the capacity in countries to be able to help identify or this kind of practice, and also give the information to the right public institution to address this issue. And this is very important. Under this program, we want to support the oversight function. This is the component 3 of this program, where we want to strengthen the oversight function. And this means we'll have some policy dialogue about the public financial management oversight in countries. And then we will be supporting them with some digital tool to be able to strengthen their function. And the last thing is to build them to peer-to-peer, exchange, to be able to learn from each other across Africa. Because some countries are doing well in this area. There are some countries who also need to improve it. And how do they connect themselves to learn from each other? This is something we'll be supporting.
Yes, but it seems that the program is headed in the right direction.
Exactly.
Comparatively, the private sector somehow tends to involve financial leaders in their big decision-making processes, as opposed to sometimes public sectors where they pay more attention to economists and also policy makers at the expense of financial leaders. Why do you think this is the case, and how can they go around this?
Yeah, I think on their leadership capacity, I think you are right. Sometimes they can find themselves technically very well established, and sometimes you can be appointed because of the excellent paper that you can produce. And we hear this during some time our visit to country, that they say, yeah, I have been appointed, but there are some leadership management capacity that I'm lacking. How do I work to address this? And sometimes the system in place did not give them this opportunity to learn otherwise. Yes, of course, through their experience, they see how the boss or the supervisors are working. This is also one of the school. But still, the world is changing. So you need to adapt to the changing world. And this is why building this capacity will be supporting them, because this is the need that they express, and we want to address it, wherever they feel like there is a gap in terms of soft skill. We will be addressing. And this program has what we call a coaching support program area. And we have a strategic advisory panel composed of former Minister of Finance, leadership expert. They will be also coaching this cohort that we will recruit to strengthen their capacity under this program. We also have some coaches who are working, let me say, if you are working in the tax administration, you can have a coach who have been former tax administration managing director, or let me say, someone who play a kind of leadership position, and they will be mentoring them in this program. And at the end, we think that these gaps that they expressed it, or that we see, in the leadership, or let me say, in managing the institution, will be filled through this program. And this will bring the equilibrium between technically and the soft skill to be able to address the reform challenges.
Finally, talk about the launch that is set to happen on Friday?
On Friday.
Of enhancing leadership and governance in public finance management.
Yes, thank you so much. This launch will be on the 31st, this means on Friday, from 8:30 to 11. Let me say that, 8:30 to 10 in the agenda. And we will have Minister of Finance of the beneficiary countries who will be member of a panel discussion. We will have the Board of Governors of ECBF, who are the Minister of Finance, Planning, Economic and Planning, who will be part of this discussion. It's really to inform, but also to get the insights or the guidance about this program implementation. Because at the end, this program they will be the direct beneficiary of this program, because they will see the citizen, let me say, the collaborator capacity being built, so they will be supporting their vision in the department, and then this will lead to what we all look for, is to have a effective public finance management for a qualitative public service delivery to citizens. I think this will be a high-level panel, and we are waiting to have development partners add to the Minister of Finance, but also the beneficiary institution being part of this panel. And it will be a very important and very impactful panel we are hoping for.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time to come to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate this time.
Yes. That is Rodolphe Banshi, who is the head of Economics and Social Governance Program at Africa Capacity Building Foundation, talking to us about enhancing leadership and governance in public finance management. My name is Mike Migwe. Don't go too far. Good Morning continues shortly. Stay with us.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Imekuwaje Muislamu basi? Yani amesilimu lakini afaluhum lam yatruk. Yani matendo yao hajawacha. Umesilimu kwa kutamuka lakini matendo yao hujawacha. Mbinu zao hujawacha. Hajarta daruhum dari umegura nyumba yao.
Tunapojibidisha kutekeleza kile ambacho Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala anapenda, basi pia tujizatiti kuepukana na makatazo yake. Habiballah ya shafi'ana.
I'd be very careful the way you address me, given that I literally have your life in my palm.
People lose hands and palms every day. Be careful you don't get yourself in that list.
People, why can't you give Solomon a chance to speak out? You talk like angry monkeys. And you, when are you ever going to learn to listen?
Okay. If you know you took my juice, it is not that expensive. It is only 10 bob.
Why is this Angela face laughing?
Don't mind her, Tell us the good news, Murume, You know some of us need something to cheer us up.
It is a cry for hope, a mark of a successful birth, and in most cases, it is a sound that brings forth joy and pride in every home, but most importantly, an indication of the beginning of life. One of Kenya's focus is to provide quality and affordable healthcare services to her citizens, and we focus our attention on a group of often unsung heroes. They are those at the beginning of life, during times of crisis, and moments of joy, playing an indispensable role alongside other healthcare professionals. They are Kenya's midwives. It was at Haven Healthcare in the heart of Nairobi's Rai area where we had the privilege of meeting Mr. Lego, a professional midwife with more than 30 years of experience in caring for Kenyan mothers and their infants. He takes immense pride in his noble profession. For Mr. Lego and his colleagues in the field, midwifery is far more than a profession. It's a vocation deeply rooted in compassion, expertise, and the profound art of nurturing new life. Midwives like him rise each day, not only to bring members of the next generation into the world, but also to support mothers throughout their pregnancy journeys and in the first few weeks of life. Here in Kenya and around the world, midwives play a pivotal role in delivering primary-level maternal and newborn health services to mothers and infants. They bridge healthcare gaps and ensure that the next generation is born healthy and in good shape, ready to face the world.
It is a long journey, let me say, with this midwifery. If you remember, earlier we had what we call community health workers and traditional birth attendants. These traditional birth attendants did some good work, but they were limited with the knowledge. They didn't have the Dopplers I've shown you here. They didn't have the basic requirements. How would they know that they were twins? How would they know that the baby carried inside the mama has some deformities? How would they know that there is a cord around the neck? Nowadays, the technology has grown, and this has bridged that gap that was there. Now we can deliver safely. We have managed to ensure that mamas are well educated, well knowledgeable about their pregnancies. They know the danger signs. They would rush to hospital and get the care that is needed before things go haywire. So we have really bridged that gap, the gap of not knowing what is next. We nowadays live knowing what is expected.
When Alego is not in his office, delivering newborn babies or mentoring young professionals, he can be found making rounds with a joyful demeanor, ensuring the comfort and well-being of mothers, infants, and sometimes their families. The challenges faced by midwives are immense and can take a toll on their well-being.
I was in contact with a mother. He had not become a mother because he had no living child, because he had 6 miscarriages. So when this mama got the 7th pregnancy, she came to us, and I was lucky to have received her, and we walked the journey. She came when she was only 10 weeks, that is almost 2 months. 2 months as such. So in the 10 weeks, we moved through until 40 weeks. Along the journey, she was being admitted because there was that labor was coming, premature labor. So we had to admit this patient until the last dates. The mama delivered a baby. You see, a mama almost comes out of the coach. You have not gone through the processes of clearing the delivery. She wants to kneel down and to pray before the end of the process. And that one really satisfied me.
Despite these challenges, midwives remain dedicated to their mission of providing safe, compassionate, and holistic care to expectant mothers and their newborns. With a lifetime spent caring for mothers and newborns, our logo serves as a beacon of inspiration for those in the profession and those aspiring to join it. We leave you with the words of our wise forefathers, reminding us of the profound respect that heroes like Mr. Lego deserve from us. Usitukane wakunga na uzazi ungalipo.
Welcome back. This is Good Morning Kenya, and we get to continue with our segments right here on the show. And right now, we are getting into a topic that is of importance to each and every one of us, and that is data protection. How protected is your data, specifically online in this digital era that we are in? Now, I am joined by the Data Commissioner of Kenya, and that is Madam Immaculate Kasaid. Madam Immaculate, welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you, Vivian.
How's your morning?
Cold.
It is a cold one,
Yes,
by the way.
it is.
Welcome to the show. We are
Thank
pleased
you.
to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, if we may begin by defining what data protection is. Yeah.
Thank you, Vivian, for that question. Data protection is basically what I would say guardrails. We are in an era where we have a lot of information that we tend to share out there. So data protection is there to make sure that there are those guardrails, that even as people use our information, collect our information, it is secure. Yes. Yeah.
So the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner was launched, or rather was established in the year 2020 in Kenya. So just what is its key mandate so that we get to understand exactly what your office deals with?
Our key mandate is actually to safeguard the rights of the data subjects. And under the Constitution of Kenya and under the Article 31, there is a right to privacy, where any information to do with you and your family is not supposed to be shared, basically. So when the Data Protection Act was established in 2019, the idea was to make sure that it gives life to the right to privacy. So under that, the mandate of the office, of course, we are responsible for making sure that the rights of the data subjects are well understood, that the data controllers and data processors actually uphold the principles under the Data Protection Act. We are responsible for making sure that if there's any complaint, the right of a data subject are upheld. So basically our work as a regulator is to make sure that that space to do with personal data is protected and it's adhered to by whoever is collecting information. Yes.
And how crucial is data protection?
I think it's the central piece in today's digital world. I know many people will say that data protection does not only touch on automation, but it is so critical, because think about it, even from an e-commerce perspective, which is one of the pillars of the government in terms of the digital superhighway. If you're transacting, our transactions happen mostly online today, whether it is a delivery, whether it is the fiber free Wi-Fi, whether it is students, whether it is hospitals. And we have a lot of transaction. We are automated, and now with the automation of government services. Think about how much information is collected online, from your name to your geolocation. When it comes to health data, you even know my health results. When it comes to my family, you know what my status. I mean, there's a lot of information. So when you think about a transaction from a business perspective, people need to feel safe that even as the information is going through the channels, email platforms, whether it's social media platforms, that information is not being misused. Because the flip side of lack of guardrails in terms of the e-commerce and data protection is it will mean that you will find people's information being misused, what we call capital surveillance. People take your information, they use it for trade with no benefit to you at all. You find fraud happening because you lost your identity. It can be an issue of mental health, where people are actually then being trolled online because of information people got about you, where you are, about your family, and that can result in mental health. And those are the flip side in terms of not having proper guardrails when it comes to actual data protection. Yes.
And right now, at the moment, as a country, how would you rate our data protection landscape?
I would say I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say probably in terms of enforcement, we would be at 8. In terms of awareness, we would be at 6. So there's work to be done. But in terms of Africa, I would say we are trailblazing in that region because we are probably one of the few. The other ones we have seen enforced is Nigeria, South Africa, and Uganda. We've been very visible in terms of enforcement, penalty notice, and also making sure that people are on check. I mean, truth be said, when this office was established, nobody even understood what the scope is. In fact, many people identified, they would say, oh, this is another GDPR. GDPR is a General Data Protection Regulations for European Union. And so you think it's a copy. People never understood because think about it, 2 years ago, sharing people's information without any recourse was the order of the day. Today, it's no longer the case because people have begun appreciating that it's my right, it's my data, I have to make a determination. I often say the cheese moved. I mean, you can no longer use my information as you like. And even if we collect it, you really use it for the purpose you collected it for. It's not an open check. It's about myself and my human dignity. That's the centrality of our data protection, that it touches on privacy, it touches on what is human about me. Because if I didn't own myself, my name, where I live, my health status, then that takes away who I am as a human being. Sure. But knowing that is shielded, it's protected, I can hold you accountable, it builds trust. Yeah, it builds trust. Yes.
What challenges maybe are you facing as an office, or what is hindering us from getting to a point where our data protection landscape is really on top of its game?
I would say in terms of awareness, we are still, whereas many people are aware in terms of what their rights are, the majority may not be aware. The people still, and also people will still share. And also the other issue is we are in an era of socioeconomic challenges. So you will have people who are willing to share the information for a dime, because, I mean, it is easily available. The other one is the misconception that data protection is here to curtail innovation. It's a deterrent, it's slowing down our work. I mean, those are some of the challenges in terms of pushbacks from institutions or people who otherwise believe they must have access to people's information. So, but we believe with awareness creation, I think for me the major one is really awareness creation and appreciating what data protection is and the role and responsibility. And also perhaps the lack of people are unable to connect the issue around capitalism surveillance vis-a-vis rights of a data subject. People are still, the people who do a lot of data, they still believe they have a right over people's information. So that is a challenge because they need to appreciate the trust level. If you are able to adhere to people's rights as a data subject, then the trust comes automatically. Yeah.
Now, as we mentioned, we live in a digital era right now. We are in the era of social media and so on. So just how secure is our data out there and, just everywhere? So just how safe is my personal data?
Vivian, that's a very relative question because you see it depends on where. Yeah, it's hard to say to what extent. What I can say, there are guardrails. Because you see also, you may not be able to guarantee safety, but you can guarantee remedy in the event there is a breach of our data. And that's why the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner exists. In the event there is a breach, data controllers are supposed to report to us within 72 hours. They're supposed to demonstrate what they have done to make sure that that data is safe. In the event of a breach, a data subject has a right to come and complain to us. They can complain on our website. They can present a complaint. Within 90 days, we're supposed to have completed investigation and given a remedy, whether it is what we call an enforcement notice, where we tell you within the next 30 days, make sure you have put these guardrails in place in as far as you're concerned. And failure to do which we then move to the penalty notice. So for me, I would look at it, are there safeguards to guarantee the security of my data, and are there opportunities for me to complain? And I often say that the Office of the Data Commissioner has been given almost like a Caesar's wife role. I mean, it's really our responsibility to build trust. Because when you think back, part of the reason why this office was established is because people were feeling, how can the state take my data? How can we trust? And with the establishment of this office, we are here to give that assurance to the members of the public that in case you have any complaint or your data you feel is not safe or it has been misused in a way that you did not agree to or outside what is called lawful purpose, then come to us. Yes. Yeah.
I would want to know, and I'm sure many people out there would also love to know, how maybe if and how you're working with the different social media platforms that we have. You know, we have the Facebooks, we have the Tweet X nowadays, we have Instagram, all these social media platforms where our data is openly there. You know, maybe is there a way you're working with such platforms to ensure protection and, you know, security?
I would say not like on a campaign. No, we are not on any direct campaign. However, some of those social media have made efforts in terms of enhancing their privacy notice. Those that haven't, there are some we have actively actually engaging, asking, really explain what is happening in as far as this is concerned. Those are active engagements because we are keen, and especially in pages where there are complaints about lack of age verification. We are concerned as an office, and some of this being active is things we are pursuing to make sure that they put in place necessary measures for age verification. In others, there's been outreach in terms of making sure that they campaign around the importance of data privacy. Yes.
And still around that, you know, impersonation is something that can easily, you know, happen when your data is out there, specifically on social media. Like, say, for example, someone uses my picture for something I did not consent to, and so on and so forth. How does one go about that, and where do I start as a person?
I would say that borders more on fraud. That borders more on fraud, and there are mechanisms in our sister agency, like Communication Authority, where they have, and that borders on fraud is also borders on a cyber security issue. And ordinarily, what would encourage these people, if there's an impersonation, it's important to officially report through the necessary social media platform, because you have mechanism of tracing, or even through a sister agency, or even through the necessary security agencies like such as DCI. Then investigation in terms of, because that is really a crime. When you start impersonating people, then that really is something that is covered under the Cyber Security Act. Yes.
So it's something that is actually punishable by law.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look at the data protection laws, but before we get to that, maybe how does one ensure that their data is safe online?
Yes. Just to say that I think the issue of what we called, and some of our sister agencies, like I said, like as Communication Authority, we partnered in terms of the hygiene, internet hygiene. I often say the answer lies on your safety in the internet when you feel in your gut feeling that it's not right. I mean, it must start from your gut. That is the safest, because it's just like when you touch something hot, you react because it is hot. That's the gut feeling. If you're online and the information being asked you feel is very intrusive, you should step back and ask why. And that is where it starts, because before you start sharing or saying this is safe, there will always be that feeling that tells you. And that, for me, I would say is the best remedy. Having said that, be careful about how much information you share out there. If it's not necessary, and also there are tools to guide you, there are tools, you need to familiarize yourself with the terms and conditions. I know there are terms, they are boring. Please remember some of those terms of condition you're consenting to. You're basically agreeing to sharing your information with third parties.
Because most of the times you don't really read.
You don't read, you say accept. Can this information be shared with a third party? Yes. And then you find yourself being trolled or your information being popping up from other websites. It's because you said you consented to sharing information. And then you also consented to tracking. Just be keen, because the fine print, even as you come back, and there are remedies in terms of making sure you're safe online. Also, just pay a little bit attention. And thirdly, also, it's about parents and guardians. I think we need to pay more attention in terms of what our children are spending time on online. There are tools, and I've seen MNOs, that is the telecommunication companies, actually also keen to make sure you're blocking sites that your children should not be in, and also tracking what they are doing, and also how much time they're spending online. It's difficult in this era where we have what we call the ICT natives. They were born in the era gadgets, but I think parenting has moved. It's no longer about what they are doing outside the house. It's about what they are doing with gadgets. I think we need to pay more. And at times, it's a lack of information. Some of campaigns that we embark on with our sister agencies, such as Communication Authority, on cyber hygiene, is to make sure that you really are aware. Please pay attention when they have those campaigns, because things could be happening right under your nose, and you're saying, mtoto wangu anashindanga kwa nyumba haendangi nje. But meanwhile, the things they are accessing, the time they are spending online, could result in issues around mental health. So parenting has been taken to another level. We can no longer assume. We must actively be involved. Yes.
Yeah, now that you've mentioned, you know, that, and it has just got me to thinking, you know, we have children who are born into this era, you know, right now they're being born into this social media era, and some are actually exposed very early. You know, the moment they are born, their parent is on social media. They put a picture of the baby. You know, we've gotten a bouncing baby boy. This is his name. Like all the information about this child is how dangerous is that, or what do you feel about that?
I will say in terms of, because also, you know, those are personal choices.
Yeah.
So you see, it's difficult from a regulatory perspective to give that. But I'll say in terms of guardrails, the Data Protection Act provides for that. In terms of sharing information when it comes to minors, it is required that the guardian is the one who is consenting to it. I'll just say the internet never forgets. Just be cautious, and like I say, please always follow your gut feeling. Yeah, gut is important, even as we look at the necessary regulatory framework. Before you touch that, you can tell. If somebody tells you that is hot, you really don't need to experiment and see whether it's actually hot when the damage has been done. It's just being cautious and challenging how we then look at issues around our own privacy as guaranteed by the Constitution. Yes.
And maybe in line with that, maybe what rights do we have as individuals regarding our data?
Under the Data Protection Act, you have a right to what we call object to processing. If, for instance, I like to say, give this example, you went into a hospital and they collected your personal information and they want to use it for other things other than for treating you, can object to that. You have right to accuracy of information. If somebody does not have your information correctly, you can complain. You have right to be forgotten. The right to be forgotten means if we went into a hotel and they collected information because it is required under the law for purposes of security to identify you, after a couple of days they need to delete that information. You should not come back to that hotel and they still have your information. That is the right to be forgotten. But I have to say that right is not absolute. Don't go and say that this government agency collected my information or I was involved in a crime, I want you to forget. No, it's not absolute, but you have a right to actually be forgotten. The other right is a right to access to information. You have a right to know what information of yours is being collected and what is being used for. You have a right also to, those are the ones that I can highlight for now. So those rights are there under the rights of, and also in our social media pages, pages, we have highlighted these rights in terms of the rights of the data subject and what remedies are available in the event that the rights are violated. Yes.
Yeah. When we talk about data protection laws, how do they look like? Data protection laws in Kenya?
I don't know, Vivian, how to speak about that without being technical, but I'll try.
Okay.
So if we look at it from the framework on data protection, I would like to look at it from an African Union perspective. We have the Convention on Cyber Security and Data Protection. At a local level, we have the Constitution of Kenya. Under the Constitution, we have the Data Protection Act. Under the Data Protection Act, we then have the 4 sets of regulations. We have regulation on registration. It governs regulation on registration. We have the general regulation. It talks about what we call data, it's technical aspect, data protection, impact assessment, transferring data out of Kenya. There are many aspects. There's the one on complaints, that's the other one. And we have one on civil registration. And specifically because that was an issue when this started, there's a specific regulation on civil registration in as far as that is concerned. Below the regulations, we have what we call guidance notes. Guidance notes, because of how technical data protection is, we've gone beyond that to guide, for instance, the education sector. What are the do's and don'ts, and given local examples? One of the issues we often say digital lenders was a big concern when we started. So we have a guidance note on digital lenders. Elections was a concern 2 years ago. We have a guidance note on election. We have a guidance note on consent. What is consent? We have a guidance note on data protection impact assessment. We have a guidance note on health. I mean, they are there. We have a pending guidance note on private security, because there has been concerns about people going to building, the information being collected. That one is yet to be discussed and completed, but it exists. So when the time for public participation comes, we'll call upon people for that. So that is the landscape in as far as data protection is concerned. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we take a short break for now, and then we come back to continue with our conversation on data protection. Remember, in studio with me is Immaculate Kasait, and she is the Data Commissioner, Kenya. So don't you go too far. We'll be back with this conversation.
Mizimu imesema atakayekuwa kiongozi ni yule pete itamchagua.
Bahari imechafuka. Mrithi wangu ni yule atakayeniletea vuo la kuoga.
Sasa na hili vuo wachana nalo, wakati wake umepita.
Pete hii ni ishara ya utawala.
Huu uongozi tusimwachie Jasiri.
Kwa nini uongozi usimwendee Jasiri? Na wauliza nyinyi, Jasiri ana nini?
Ukiva hakuna atakayekusumbua.
I'd be very careful the way you address me, given that I literally have your life in my palm.
People lose hands and palms every day. Be careful you don't get yourself in that list.
People, why can't you give Solomon a chance to speak out? You talk like angry monkeys. And you, when are you ever going to learn to listen?
Okay. If you know you took my juice, it is not that expensive. It is only 10 bob.
Why is this Angela face laughing?
Don't mind her, eh? Tell us the good news, Murume, eh? You know some of us need something to cheer us up.
All right, welcome back. We are glad that you are still tuned to Good Morning Kenya. We are talking about data protection, and we've looked at quite a number of things. Now, maybe to you, Madam Immaculate, now we are in the era where everyone is talking about AI. Right now, you know, we were talking about it, we were looking at it as something that is in the future, but it is here with us now. AI is already here with us right now. So how does AI affect data protection? Or how will it affect data protection? Or how are you planning on using it, you know, in regards to data protection?
I'll say that, thank you, Vivian, for that question, that AI was here with us a long time. Maybe we didn't notice. It's just that now it's become more pronounced, it's become a way of life, and it's moving pretty fast in terms of modeling and changing. And really, when you think about it, it's really trying to create efficiency, and therefore we can't wish it away. Having said that, I'll say two things about artificial intelligence. In as far as the Data Protection Act is concerned, there's a provision as we speak on artificial intelligence saying that you cannot be subjected to automated decision making without some sort of human intervention. And the reason behind it is to avoid discrimination. What does that mean? Let me illustrate, even as I come back to the question on whether that is sufficient and what we are doing in as far as that is concerned. When it comes to AI and artificial intelligence, when it comes to automated decision making, what it means that you will find some organization, for instance, human resource, they use algorithms to interview you and make an assessment and decision. They will have perhaps a tool. Who are you? What are you doing? What are you up to? What is your experience? Then based on your answers, it then makes a decision whether to hire or not to hire. So what that Data Protection Act is saying, please do not use that only because if it's biased and it's looking, for instance, first-class student vis-a-vis upper second or lower, if that is how the algorithm has been prepared, you see, at the end of the day, if you fell within another outside first class, you will obviously not get that job. Or in very extreme situation, your location or where you come from. You see, that's a discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, and things like that. So you discriminate on basis of that. So what the act anticipates is that you cannot make decision based on that only. And if it's a proof, then you should be able to complain about it. So then we come back now. Do we have sufficient laws in as far as Kenya is concerned? What the ministry has done under the leadership of our CS, Eliud Owalo, is to come up with a task force which is supposed to release their findings in terms of those emerging issues, and AI being one of them. It's being talking about the issues around basically having guardrails. AI and data protection is I would say that the role of data protection does not diminish because of AI. The expectation that we're still going to have guardrails under the artificial intelligence is still an expectation. With the recent, we've seen a lot of development globally, from the UN to the European Union and the recent AI Act. Our work at the Data Protection Commission still remains, even as we embrace new tools such as artificial intelligence, they actually have guardrails on the part about privacy, because at times people collect information to train AI tools and they don't disclose. They don't disclose it will be used for training. You see, that already is a conflict, because the purpose by which the information was intended was for A. You're now using it for training. You see, that already you're breaching one of the what we call principles of data protection, purpose limitation. So it won't matter. The guardrails on data protection will still be an expectation, even as we embrace and go deep into AI. Yes.
I hear you on that. Maybe what are some of the most common threats to data protection that you would say we are facing right now as a country if we limit it just to Kenya?
And I said, I had spoken to it earlier, one of the threats is, two is lack of information. And what I would say, change management, lack of change management, that there's a new law, people need to embrace it, and therefore resist. And the second one is resourcing. I would say institutions have not taken data protection very seriously, and therefore resourced in terms of human resource and financial resource. Because part of the human resource, even though it's not a must for us to have data protection officers, it's important, incumbent upon you, especially if you're a big organization, to have one. In terms of money, you need to put resources so that you do audits, you do awareness creation, you change your system. The other one is threat is lack of data protection by default and by design. Because some institutions think it's a tick box, but data protection is beyond a checklist. It is about you going back to your decision-making processes at conceptual to the end. So if you're a company and you're actually automated, you have to go back to your design. So that it is not, you ask yourself, are we asking, during our product development, are we asking too much information, and how will we safeguard that information at the collection, processing, and conclusion? People are not doing that. So that's a threat. They think it's a tick box where you get a data protection officer, where you do an audit. But in terms of your system, by default and by design, it should cut across from start to end. I see that as a threat. The other one, of course, is resistance. We see that a lot. I think people have not realized what data protection has done is not about the data protection commissioner. And I say this because it's about the individual, it's about the data subject, it's about the Kenyan who now knows these are my rights. And you know, from a philosophical perspective, rights, you're born with your rights. You can't take them away. You give them. Yes, it's a philosophy issue, but well, that's a discussion for another day. Yes, yeah.
Now, when I had asked you the question on data protection landscape in Kenya, you gave public awareness 6. You know, maybe what should be done to improve on public awareness on data protection and the Data Protection Act?
What we've done is, as another office, is to train 1,000 plus individuals. It's we have also partnered with Kenya School of Government. We have accredited institutions and companies to help us in this. We've also done awareness creation across 40 counties. That may not be adequate. What we are calling, it's additional resources at company level so that you actually go out of your way to also educate your customers and your clients on what this means. We as an office, in the coming year, in partnership with GIZ, is to actually roll out an additional campaign at the very grassroots so that people are able to understand even more what data protection will be. Targeted training for government officials and private sector so that they know what data protection is and the responsibility under that. Yes.
So you're working?
Yes, working towards that also. Correct.
Yeah. All right. If you may just tell us what guidance note, what a guidance note is in relation to data protection and its significance.
A guidance note is a simplified that's what it is. It's a guide.
Okay.
It's a guide. You know, when you go to when you receive any appliances in the house, inside there's a guide. It tells you switch on the light, don't put too much power. That's what a guidance note is. It is a guide towards a specific industry, because the Data Protection Act is quite technical. And when I tell you data protection impact assessment, it might not make sense to you. Or when I tell you do ABCD, it might not make sense to you. But when we guide you, and for instance, when it comes to financial sector, we will give examples that are relevant. We will tell you what the principles are, what are the bare minimums. What are the principles? What are the rights of your data subject? What is expected of you in terms of if you're sharing information out of the country? What is expected if you're to do an audit of data, if there was a breach, and also give you a checklist of some of those. Those are the guidance. And that's what I was saying. We have 8 guidance notes, health, education. We have one on security, which I said is still pending to be completed. We have data protection information assessment. We have consent. We have digital lenders. We have one on MNOs, that is mobile providers. Those are some of one on consent that we have in as far as guidance note. We call them, it's below actually the regulations. We've gone beyond just the regulations to give guidance, and we continue to do so. In places we want to encourage people who are service providers. If you feel your area still has no clarity, let's continue engaging, let's continue having guidance notes so that it's able to guide your work and makes it easier for you to conform in as far as data protection is concerned and to make the ecosystem much better. Yes.
Okay. Now, Kenya and the EU launched the first adequacy dialogue in Africa, the first one in Africa. Tell us more about that and what is an adequacy decision?
Okay. Yeah. Vivian, I think people have not appreciated how significant that a decision, an adequacy decision would be for Kenya. But what is an adequacy decision? Yeah. An adequacy decision, it means that it means that the laws in Kenya are equated to the laws under the European Union. It means that the safeguards that Kenya has in as far as data protection is similar to what the European Union has. As we speak, our regulatory framework in as far as adequacy is concerned is probably a trailblazer in the region in comparison to the European Union. European Union, we're on discussion with them because an adequacy decision will mean that a small medium enterprise in Kenya will be trading with Europe as if it was in Paris or it was in Geneva or it was in one of those major cities. There is no, I like to call it an adequacy decision between Kenya and Europe. It's like a visa-free. You no longer have to fill a list of audits to explain who you are. What does this mean for business? It means there are many European countries which would like to invest here in terms of business process outsourcing. But before you can do that, you have to go through a very vigorous process because they are quite stringent in terms of data protection. But once we have an adequacy with Europe, you will be trading, you don't require that. Basically, they are giving an assurance that this is what it is in Kenya. It means accessing $1 billion European dollar market, and I think we still trade very highly with the European Union. It means that we'll have access to those kind of market in as far as Kenya is concerned. It is true in Africa there's no other country that currently is engaging with the issue around adequacy with the European Union. So that it would be a major milestone for this economy and for this country. Yeah. So and also in terms of trust, it is an assurance that any business happening here, we are guaranteeing trust and the rights of the data subject are a priority. Yes. Yeah.
All right. So it's still in the works.
It's in the works. We haven't, because you see, it's not a plug and play. It is you have to do an assessment. It eventually has to. There's a process really, and it's beyond European because it's two ways. So that we don't look at it like Europe. Even we will be considering to give European adequacy decision with Kenya, and also other African countries, not just European. And what it means, because one of the concerns that has been there by countries that operate, by companies that operate outside Kenya and our Kenyan companies, is how it is very laborious for them to then comply with the data protection in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo. Getting adequacy decisions with these countries for Kenya will mean that our companies in Kenya can easily trade, and it becomes easier in terms of the data protection framework or landscape in those countries. Yeah, so it's two-way. And also the other one, which is a conversation also happening, is us getting into an adequacy with the United Arab Emirates. So those are the two at least which are active. The one with the European has made milestone because we've already had our preliminary meetings. The United Arab Emirates were still at an advisory level, and the African countries, it's something that was called upon when we had the Network for African Data Protection Authority as one of the issues that would really like to advance. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe what technologies and practices are most effective in protecting data?
Let me say there is no right or wrong answer on that one. It's an area that is still developing. There are international standard ISO which are certified, which talks about privacy. Those ones are there. Those are standards that are globally accepted. But it's one of the areas that has been left in terms of self-regulations, because you don't want to also put a very high requirement to organization and then it becomes impossible for them to comply. It becomes very challenging for business. So if you look at how the Data Protection Act has been designed, is more on self-compliance, self-declaration. Declare. If you have a breach, tell us. Tell us what you're doing to actually address this. If you're on registration, tell us what are your safeguards. So you do, and also if when data come data protection officer, tell us. it's at the nascent stage. You don't want to put very stringent expectation high then when you do that, then you're pushing everybody else out of business. But in 2, 3, 4 years, when we review and say the data protection implementation has moved from stage A to 2 to 3, then you can then improve as you go. Yes.
And still maybe in line with that, how can companies, build a culture of data protection?
Yeah. The place to start, Vivian, as a company, if you're really gabbling with it, our offices are open to begin this journey. But best to summarize, a journey on data protection starts with a self-audit. Self-audit of where are we, what information do we collect, where do we store this information. The other one that becomes is an issue of having a data protection officer. And if you don't have one, you can outsource. On our website, we have listed companies that we did shortlist in terms of accredit, in terms of services of audit and training. Approach one of those ones if you let them guide you in terms of the implementation. But start with understanding the Data Protection Act. With the guidance notes, with the regulations, with the act, you can't go wrong. Just do a list of what you consider as top priority. Then you're making, and also start by registering as a data controller and data processor. Because when you start registering, that's your compliance journey. Because it's at the registration stage where we'll ask you some of those things perhaps you don't think about. Do you transfer your information? How much information do you collect? Where do you keep it? What are your safeguards that you put? You're already indirectly doing a small audit of who you are. And then to move to the next level, having personnel, doing a proper audit, doing a data protection impact assessment, doing data, those are some of the, basically whatever, some of the steps, yes.
Okay. Now, as we come to a close of this conversation, I know you've talked about things that are in the works, some achievements that you have made, especially in terms of the adequacy dialogue with the EU, and also you've just mentioned that you're also having discussions around that with the United Arab Emirates. Maybe what are some other achievements that you would love to highlight before we
some of our other achievements, I would say, is the operationalization of the office. We are now present in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nairobi, Nakuru, and we are also at Huduma centers in Nyeri and Garissa and Eldoret, and this year we'll also be there. So that's one. The other one, of course, is being able to actually enforce and also comply. That's for the other one is awareness creation for us. That has been an achievement, and partnering with county government. The other one is being under 3 years, we sit on the Network for African Data Protection Authority as vice chair, hosting a regional conference of that magnitude in under 3 years, and being part of networks. And also, those I would say those are some of our achievements. And also making the issue around data protection a dialogue, because it was non-existence. When the research was done by Amnesty, we were at 67%, people didn't know. But now we can say there's tremendous effort. People may not understand the intake, but they know if you take my photo, you need to consent to it. And if you use it for commercial purposes. So that for me is a big achievement in terms of people being awoke to the culture of data protection.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. What would be your parting shots?
I would say that the issues around data protection is a journey. It's not too late to start. I want to also urge companies in this area of data protection, please pay attention to the right of the data subject, because it can only make your company propel better in terms of trust. For the data subject, we are here as an office to address all your concerns. If you are dissatisfied or something happened you did not agree with, our offices remain open, our website is available, and come and dialogue with us in as matters data protection, because it is through ensuring the rights of the data subjects are protected that we actually build trust and even make this country better for ecosystem in terms of business.
Thank you so much, and thank you for gracing our show this morning. All right, that was Madam Immaculate Kasait. She is the Data Commissioner, Kenya. And this is where we put a cap to this conversation. But Good Morning Kenya gets to continue. Don't you go too far. We'll be back in a moment.
Waswahili anakuambia umbwa wa msasi mkali ni wakali pia. Hivi inamaanisha kwamba wamekwisha nolewa na sasa kinolewacho hupata. Je, watakupa kitu gani?
Walimu ni mwangaza, kwani gizani huzagaa. Kweli walimu wetu hawana mfanano.
Vijana wengi wanapoingia katika mitandao na kupata mila na desturi tofauti kutoka nchi za ng'ambo, wanaigiza mila hizo pasi na kwamba mila hizo ni kinyume na mila na desturi zao.
Hatari zaidi ni kuwa picha hizo usambaa na kupatikana kwa urahisi, hivyo na kuwafikia vijana.
Ilahi twaanza kwa jina lake waduri, kisha swala na salamu.
I'd be very careful the way you address me, given that I literally have your life in my palm.
People lose hands and palms every day. Be careful you don't get yourself in that list.
People, why can't you give Solomon a chance to speak out? You talk like angry monkeys. And you, when are you ever going to learn to listen?
Okay, if you know you took my juice, it is not that expensive, it is only 10 bob.
Why is this Angela face laughing?
Don't mind her, tell us the good news, Murume, You know some of us need something to cheer us up.
Gideon Konchellah studied at Kilgoris Primary School from 1959 to 1965. He then joined Narok High School in 1966 to 1970. For his A-levels, Konchellah schooled from 1971 to 1972 at Nairobi School, Kenya. He then attended the Military Training College in Lanet. From 1979 to 1987, he served as a commander of Kenya Army Ordnance Corps at Kahawa. He then served as a military officer, commander and logistics officer from 1987 to 1991 in the Department of Defense. From 1991 to 2002, Konchellah served as a commander of Kenya Army Ordnance Corps at Kahawa. From the year 2003 to 2007, he served as Kilgoris Member of Parliament. From 2006 to 2007, he was appointed Minister for Immigration and Registration of Persons by President Mwai Kibaki. During his tenure, Kenya witnessed a series of significant events, one of which involved the notorious Atur brothers. The saga came to light in early 2006 when Atur Magarian and Atur Sagasyan entered the country claiming to be businessmen and management consultants. But none of that was visible as they went about town partying with abandon and allegedly breaking the law. President Kibaki appointed a commission of inquiry to establish the truth of the matter. It was under Minister Konchellah's watch at the Immigration Department when the Refugees Act 2006 was enacted to deal with issues regarding refugees in the country. Previously, Kenya relied on colonial-era legislation, the Control of Alien Act, that was perceived hostile by treating refugees as bothersome and unwanted intruders. The domesticated law would change that to conform to the international conventions on the treatment of refugees. In the year 2000, Konchellah joined Party of National Unity and successfully vied for Kilgoris parliamentary seat. He served as Kilgoris Member of Parliament from the year 2008 to 2013. after the 2007 debacle, where 2/3 of the Kibaki cabinet, including Vice President Mudi Awori, lost their seats, Konchellah was among the only 4 who bounced back in the 2013 elections. He was elected on a United Republican Party ticket. Konchellah would be elected MP again in 2017, but faced a petition from his perennial rival, former Cabinet Minister Julius Sonkoli. He won round 1 at the High Court, but lost the second round at the Court of Appeal. However, the Supreme Court upheld his election. He was born into one of the 4 famous families in Narok County. Others are the Ntimamas, Ntutus, and Sonkolis. In the 2022 general election, he vied for the Narok senatorial position but lost. Jackie Wambiru, The Cabinet.
All right, welcome back. We know that it is day 3 of the African Development Bank annual meeting that is happening at the KICC and will be going through to till Friday, that is. And we have our reporter on standby, that is O'Brien Kimani, who is on location, and he is just there and he will be telling us what is expected today. I know that the president is at KICC at the moment as we speak, and he is there to officially open the Africa Development Bank annual meeting. O'Brien, if you can hear me, just let us in on what is happening at KICC right now.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, Broadcasting House. That's right, we're here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Today is a highlight of the 5-day or the week-long African Development Bank annual meeting. We're going to have the presidential dialogue, which is going to deliberate on how to transform Africa, drive the reforms of the global financial architecture, as well as relook at issues affecting the African Development Bank and reimagining the bank in the next 60 years. Remember, the 30th anniversary of the bank was celebrated here at the same venue, Kenyatta International Convention Center, and the 60th anniversary is happening at the same venue. What a momentous occasion here. I can confirm to you the President, William Ruto, who is the host of this meeting, already arrived here at about 7 in the morning. And I've been counting the number of presidents who have made their way to this venue, and I have about 10 of them. I understand more are already here. And of course, this is going to be the highlight of this meeting. The last 2 days have been eventful for this conference. The first day, there was conversation on how to reform the debt markets here in Africa to ensure that the rating of African countries by international rating agencies is favorable. Because remember, when you look at the total net external debt of Africa, it stands at about $1 trillion. And the continent is paying more than $70 billion annually on interest. And this is a major or is a significant interest that goes to multilateral lenders. And so the question is, how do we de-risk lending to Africa? And of course, ensuring that Africa gets its fair share of funding. Yesterday, another conversation on how to upscale private investors to invest in Africa on bankable projects. The African Development Bank was very, very categorical that Africa is not going to develop if private sector is going to be left behind. And so there was a consensus that the public and the private sector, they need to work together in a bid to address the challenges facing the African continent. And this includes issues like education or illiteracy, food insecurity, conflicts, climate change. And when you talk about climate change, the whole of Africa is absolutely impacted by the changing trends in climate. For example, here in Kenya, the government is going to spend more than 50 billion shillings to deal with the floods that affected a huge part of this country. Just the other day, we had this from the Transport Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, that so far there is a need to invest about 35 billion shillings to rework on our infrastructure that has been badly damaged by floods. Those are the issues that have been discussed here. And so when you look at Africa, in terms of climate financing, the gap is huge. Last year, the continent received about $30 billion in terms of climate financing. But when you look at the needs, you're looking at $277 billion. So you're talking about 15% of the continent's needs that only got to Africa last year. And so the question is, how do we upscale climate financing here in Africa? Because there are so many opportunities around carbon credit, for example. And I was having a conversation yesterday with a carbon credit expert, and they said that currently Africa is exporting or is trading about $600 million in carbon credit, but the potential is more than 10 times that number. And so the question is, how then do we realign our policies and rework on our structures to ensure that we benefit and we become the force of carbon credit trading in Africa? That's also a conversation that has been taking place here. Today, the presidential dialogue will be taking place. This is the highest decision-making body of the African Development Bank. They will be discussing how to refinance the African Development Bank. Last year, or the 17th replacement of the bank, we saw $89 billion being pledged, and the leaders are talking about more than doubling of this number to more than $200 billion in the next replacement, which is coming up next year. So they will be talking about laying out the right structures and, of course, ensuring that this number is achieved. The issue of young people has also been discussed here, and I'll be joined by Karaoke. He's an advocate. He's a youth advocacy leader, and he'll be helping me understand how, in all these conversations, the young people, where are they? Because you're talking about a continent that has about 1.3 billion people, and 60% of these are aged below the age of 40 years. So you're talking about a critical mass that cannot be left behind. Africa is considered to be the most youngest, or to be the youngest continent in the world. And I don't mean in terms of biological age. I'm talking about the continent with the highest number of young people. And so what conversation should be taking place here to ensure that young people are factored in decision making? And of course, ensuring that their voice matters. Karaoke is a youth leader in many fronts. He's joining me now to help me understand whether, from their perspective, the voices of young people have been captured here, and what else should be done to ensure that we mainstream the desires of young people. Karaoke, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us here. I mean, I have been seeing you here for the last 3 days. You have been following conversations here. I first of all want to hear from you, what do you make of the deliberations in this place in the last 2 days?
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. I come here, first of all, as a representative of the young people from the Republic of Kenya. Conference Center, we held the 4th Africa Youth Connect Summit, which brought together young people from all the countries of Africa. And our discussions majorly were centered on the mainstreaming, just like you said, of the young people in the conversation of, number one, climate change, which is also, I think, part of the conversations that I have had within these platforms. Number two, we also discuss participation of young people in education. Just, I think, 2 days ago, there was a conversation there led by the former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, and Equity Group chairperson, James Mwangi. And they were discussing the place of, the private sector in education. We had that conversation and brought the position of the young people in this conversation. So today, me being here, one, because, like you rightly put it, the young people constitute the huge percentage of the African population. And even in the blueprints like the...
Let us kindly take our seats. It is now my honor to invite the Secretary General of the Africa Development Bank, Professor Vincent Nemele, to give the necessary protocols and also guide the program. Why don't we put our hands together as we welcome Professor Vincent Nemele to take over the program. Welcome, sir.
His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency Mr. Denis Sassou Nguesso, President of the Republic of Congo. His Excellency Mr. Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, who will be with us very shortly. His Excellency Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. His Excellency Mr. Mohamed Yunus Menfi, President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. His Excellency Mr. Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, President of the Republic of Somalia. His Excellency Mr. Prosper Bazombanza, Vice President of the Republic of Burundi, representing His Excellency Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi. Her Excellency Ms. Sarah Kungongelwa Amadila, Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia. His Excellency Mr. Ali Lamin Zain, Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger. His Excellency Mr. Alexandre Barrow Chambrier, Vice Prime Minister of the Republic of Gabon. Honorable Suarez Sambu, Minister of Economy, Planning and Integration of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, representing His Excellency Mr. Omaro Sissoko Embalo, President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. Mr. Mateus Magala, Minister for Transport and Communication of the Republic of Mozambique, representing His Excellency Mr. Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of the Republic of Mozambique. His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. His Excellency Mr. Joaquim Alberto Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique. His Excellency Mr. Jakaya Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Honorable Professor Njunguna Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning and AFDB Governor and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank Group. Dr. Akinwumi A. Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group. Honorable Governors of the African Development Bank Group, alternate governors of the African Development Bank Group, senior officials of the Republic of Kenya, heads of regional communities and financial institutions, members of the diplomatic corps, executive directors of the African Development Bank Group, senior managements and staff of the African Development Bank Group, media houses, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vincent Mehele, Secretary General of the African Development Bank Group. I will be facilitating this opening ceremony. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 2024 annual meetings of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank Group. Also, the annual meeting of the African Development Bank, African Development Fund in this beautiful city of Nairobi, also fondly known as the Green City in the Sun. The annual meetings this year are significant in that they flag off the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the African Development Bank. On this auspicious occasion of the annual meetings, as our shareholders meet once again to take stock of the bank group's activities and performance and to make decisions, I would like to express our profound gratitude to you all for kindly and favorably responding to our invitation. There is a lot in store for everyone during this week, as you will notice from the lineup of knowledge events, numerous side events, social and hospitality events. Before we delve into the heart of the event, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to convey our deepest, and I mean deepest and sincere appreciation to the Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, AFDB Governor and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors, for his sterling work and dedication during his tenure at the helm of affairs of the bank's highest decision-making body, and for ensuring that Kenya, as host, held nothing back in ensuring that we had very successful annual meetings. Please join me to thank him. Honorable Governor, we thank you and appreciate your relentless efforts and great support. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's annual meeting is Africa's Transformation, the African Development Bank Group, and the reform of the global financial architecture. It is therefore our hope that the deliberations today will provide answers to the difficult questions embedded in the theme. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, without much further ado, I'd like to present the program of the opening ceremony. We will have a welcome statement by the chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank Group, Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndungu. After that, we will have an opening video for the annual meetings. And that will be followed by the keynote speech of the President of the African Development Bank, President Akinwumi A. Adesina. After that, we will have a statement by His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. And then we will play the video by the host country and then crown it all up by the opening address of His Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege and honor to call upon the Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, AFDB Governor for Kenya, and the Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank Group, to deliver his welcome statement. Mr. Chairman.
Your Excellencies, fellow governors, Commissioner of the African Union Commission, honorable ministers and governors of the African Development Bank Group, heads of international, bilateral and regional financial institutions, distinguished guests, good morning. On behalf of the Kenya government and Chair of the African Development Bank Boards of Governors, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome you all to Nairobi for the 59th annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. These meetings are being held closely after the recent meetings of the World Bank's IDA 21 Replenishment Summit that the government of Kenya was privileged to host, and His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, is a champion. I'm therefore delighted to welcome you back here at home in Nairobi. First, I want to begin by expressing our deepest appreciation for the warm and cordial relationship that exists between the African continent and our premier development bank, the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank mandate remains relevant and important to the African continent as it supports a wide range of development activities that have supported in many ways the process towards economic vibrancy, economic growth, job creation, improved incomes, and better living conditions for the Africans and the African economies. We wish to reassure the bank of our continued commitment to this fruitful partnership and collaboration. Allow me also to convey my appreciation to the bank group for delivering a very relevant theme for this year's annual meetings, which is Africa's transformation, African Development Bank Group, and reform of the global financial architecture. This resonates quite well with the current global agenda and discourse on the need to reform the global financial architecture to be responsive to the dynamic needs of our continent. I'm glad that the annual meetings includes high-level plenary session for the launch of the bank's flagship publication, the 2024 African Economic Outlook, a presidential dialogue and thematic knowledge events on the theme. And this provides us with a unique opportunity to address Africa's challenges and opportunities at the highest decision-making levels. Consistent with the theme of the annual meetings, the focus of the knowledge event aims to fast-track structural transformation in Africa. This is a panacea to faster socioeconomic transformation, in addition to addressing the importance of reconfiguring global financial architecture as an engine for structural transformation. It is comforting to note that the bank's group's contribution towards Africa's socioeconomic transformation in 60 years of existence, especially on infrastructure, has been such monumental, with a significant and important mark in spite of the limited level of resources when compared to other global multilateral development institutions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we reaffirm our strong support to the African Development Bank, I urge CORI governors to deepen their discussions around the increase of the general corable capital. This will protect the bank's AAA rating on a sustainable basis against recurrent external shocks, including downgrade of its AAA-rated shareholders. This will enable the bank to maintain its rating trajectory and preserve its position as a strategic lender and the premier development finance institutions in Africa. But above all, reform that is consistent with the theme of the 2024 annual meetings. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the midst of the global and even regional challenges, we have opportunities to reboot our policy framework and efforts to develop a more competitive and integrated economies in Africa that will attract greater investment. I therefore urge all of us to seize the opportunities provided during the annual meetings to bring forward practical policy discussions for collective efforts in terms of mutual dialogue, stronger partnership, effective joint coordination for the realization of the African Economic Development Agenda. With these remarks, I wish all of you fruitful discussions and present stay in Nairobi, Kenya, which has many rich offerings outside your formal sessions that I would like to invite you to sample. Asante sana. Thank you very much.
With those welcoming words of our chairperson, I'd like to introduce the 2020 annual meeting opening video. Please cue the video.
With all the minerals we have, oil, gas, metals, forest resources, carbon resources, and everything that we have, it's indefensible that Africa is poor. And I think that the wealth of Africa has been undervalued in many, many ways.
Africa has the potential to drive global emissions down and grow sustainably as the world transitions towards renewable energy. Africa hosts the world's largest green energy sources, including solar, wind, hydropower, and geothermal. But Africa loses $7 to $15 billion a year from adverse climate conditions. The continent only accounts for 3% of global emissions, but receives about 3% of global climate financing. Africa receives only 0.5% of global development aid to fight against poverty, and African countries pay up to 5 times more in financing than most developed countries. Simply put, the cost of debt is drying up Africa's economic growth. Is it fair? To achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, the African Union's Agenda 2063 and the African Development Bank's High 5 priorities, the global financial architecture needs to be reformed. If we choose transformative, new and right actions, if the global community starts accounting for the natural untapped capital owned by a country as a share of its GDP, African countries in particular would be able to access more affordable financing and better credit ratings. If the world simplifies global climate finance systems, it would increase access to global climate aid for the African countries that need it the most. If domestic resources are not used to pay the cost of debt, Africa could accelerate industrialization and develop green. To do so, multilateral development banks have a critical role to play.
The African Development Bank initiative to rechannel SDRs to multilateral development banks could multiply their impact by 5.
We are now working with my brother of the African Development Bank to make it possible for regional development banks to use SDRs as hybrid capital.
Maybe we might consider even changing the name of that SDR to supporting development revitalization. It's a different way of SDR, but it works also for us.
The forthcoming 17th replenishment of the ADM should be doubled to 25 billion per replenishment cycle, thereby facilitating greater levels of concessional financing to its 37 low-income member countries.
And when we say we want to deconstruct the risk that makes the lending to the Global South prohibitively expensive as compared to lending in the Global North, then I think we know what we mean.
We are not talking about charity. Ultimately, the reforms to the international financial institutions will benefit all of us.
We need to turn ifs into realities for the multilateral development banks to finance even more transformative, innovative, and sustainable projects. It is to the African Development Bank Group's credit that it has tangibly supported more than 5,400 projects in 60 years and in the process improved the lives of millions of people.
Je suis très heureux parce que je sais que mes amis, mes descendants, mes enfants, tout le monde va passer sur ce pont. Et ça rallie tout Abidjan. La Y4 est ouverte, le tunnel d'Abobo est ouvert, le canal est ouvert.
On va aussi au tsunami. On sort un panneau soleil. Et on sort one.
I'm very happy because this time I'm receiving a lot of customers from both two countries, Malawi and Zambia. It's because of the new one border stop which has come and making people easy to move.
Kwa hivyo nilipojiunga huku CRDB, Malkia account nikachukua mkopo, kwa hiyo nikaongezea kwenye mtaji. Ilikuwa nilianza kidogo kidogo, sikuwa nilianza kukopa kidogo, nikimaliza naongeza. Kwa hiyo mpaka biashara ikawa kubwa.
Le projet d'alimentation de la ville de Zagora, d'Agdez et de toutes les communes avoisinantes à partir du barrage d'Agdez a été parmi les grands projets structurants. Donc nous sommes fiers de sa réalisation. Il va permettre de sécuriser l'approvisionnement pour une population de 300 000 habitants.
These first 60 years of successful, transformative and impactful investments by the African Development Bank are only a beginning. Now is the time to leverage the successes and lessons of the past. Now is the time to our vision. And now is the time for even greater ambition to bring about the transformative change Africa needs. Together, we can make it happen. So, welcome to the 2024 African Development Bank Group's annual meetings as we celebrate 60 years of collective, transformative and visionary development leadership and transformative solutions as we lock hands together to create a better future for all Africans.
Avec votre soutien, le groupe de la Banque africaine de développement continuera à susciter l'espoir, à innover, à diriger et à utiliser sa position de première institution financière d'Afrique pour accélérer le développement de l'Afrique.
Isn't that wonderful? May I welcome His Excellency President Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, who has just arrived. Welcome, Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming. They have given him so many names. Some call him the evangelist in chief, and others call him the optimist in chief. The president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi A. Adesina, who apparently is the AAA president of a AAA bank. Welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you, Secretary General. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and our host. And I was thinking about how to really get your try to right this morning. Congratulations on your trip to the United States, which was a wonderful state visit you had, but you came back with a new title. And it was called, by President Biden, the Major Non-NATO Ally. So you're going to start putting that behind your name, Mr. President. Thank you for welcoming us to Kenya. Your Excellency, Denis Sassou Nguesso, President of the Republic of Congo. Your Excellency, Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda. Your Excellency, Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, Mohamed Yunus Al-Menfi, President of the Presidency Council of the Government of the National Unity of the State of Libya. Your Excellency, Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, President of the Federal Republic of Somalia. Your Excellency, Musa Faki, my dear brother, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Your Excellency, Prosper Bozum Mbaza, Vice President of the Republic of Burundi, representing His Excellency President Evariste Ndayishimiye. Your Excellency, Sarah Kungogelwa Amandila, Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia, representing His Excellency President Nangolo Umumba. Your Excellency, Ali Lamin Zain, Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger and a former staff of the African Development Bank. Your Excellency, Alexandre Baro-Chambrier, Vice Prime Minister of the Republic of Gabon. Your Excellencies, representing heads of state and government. Your Excellency, Joachim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique. Professor Njuguna Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary of the Treasury of Kenya and Chairman of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank Group. Your Excellency, I have two friends here because you asked us to work together globally. I'm delighted to be joined here by two of my colleagues that are presidents of multilateral development banks. Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Sulaiman Al-Jazar, President and Chairman of the Islamic Development Bank Group, and His Excellency Jean Lukun, President of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Banks. I'm joined by all my colleagues from African financial institutions and our partners, honorable heads of national institutions of the Republic of Kenya, my dear honorable governors of the African Development Bank Group, cabinet secretaries, excellencies, heads of diplomatic missions, my executive directors, my senior management and staff, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, my beautiful darling wife, Grace, my number one supporter, counselor, and friend. Thank you. Good morning. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the 2024 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. These annual meetings take on a special nature this year because it marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the African Development Bank Group. We are delighted that you all are able to join us on this auspicious occasion. I wish to thank His Excellency President William Ruto for accepting to host these annual meetings in this beautiful country of Kenya and the Sunshine City of Nairobi. I wish to thank you all, our heads of state and government, for making time to join us for this special occasion. We are truly delighted that all our shareholders are here, represented by our dear governors from all of our shareholder countries. Your collective support, advocacy, and financial commitments to the African Development Bank Group make us who we are and afford us the opportunity to serve as Africa's premier financial institution. We are inspired by the vision of our founding fathers and mindful of our position and the role within the global financial architecture, as well as the responsibility placed on us by the African Union to mobilize financing for Africa's development. We carry the hopes and the aspirations of Africa in our institutional genes and in our corporate soul. As we gather today, we do so against the backdrop of major global challenges, including heightened geopolitical tensions, the disruption of global value chains, rising food and energy prices, increasing debt service payments, and, of course, climate change. The devastating effects of climate change are everywhere, from droughts to floods, from cyclones to unpredictable weather patterns, with loss of lives and property, and enormous fiscal costs to countries. May I please kindly request that we all stand to observe a moment of silence in honor of those who lost their lives during the recent floods in Kenya and all other countries who have been devastated by the effects of the climate change they did not cause or even know about. Your Excellencies, please. Thank you very much. May their souls rest in peace. Even as we remember them, we must be resolute about taking decisive action to build more climate-resilient economies. And that's why I applaud President Ruto for hosting the landmark Africa Climate Summit right here in Kenya, where we collectively agreed to put Africa at the heart of global climate change efforts, especially climate adaptation. Your Excellencies, African economies are showing great resilience despite the challenges posed by climate change, geopolitical tensions, global inflation, and rising debt, among others. The African Development Bank projects that Africa's real GDP growth will rise from 3.1% in 2023 to 3.7% in 2024 and 4.3% in 2025. Importantly, despite these headwinds, more than half, and that is 31 countries, achieved higher real GDP growth rates in 2023 than in 2022. And most importantly, 10 African countries are among the 20 fastest growing economies in the world. I think we've done well against the headwinds. I think we deserve a clap for Africa. The African Development Bank Group strongly supports African economies. In 2023, our financing totaled $10 billion across all of our high five priorities: to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, to integrate Africa, and to improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. These high fives, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, are the accelerators of Africa's development. The bottom line is that the African Development Bank delivers. Since we launched these high fives in 2016, our financing has impacted the lives of over 400 million people. Last year, our work has significant impact across the continent, with 11 million farmers provided with access to improved agricultural technologies, 8 million people provided with access to new sanitation services, 3.5 million people with access to improved transport, 2.8 million people provided with better health services, 1 million people provided with access to clean water, and over 443,000 enterprises provided with access to finance. The African Development Bank is highly responsive. When the Russian war in Ukraine erupted, it posed tremendous food security risks to Africa. To forestall a crisis, the bank launched a $1.5 billion emergency food production facility to rapidly support African countries in their ambition to reduce food dependency over a 2-year period. As of April 2024, we have approved loans and grants of $1.496, to be precise, billion for this emergency food production in 35 countries. We also got help and support from our shareholders. $3 million of additional support from the government of Japan, the government of the United States, Norway, Germany, and the Netherlands. We have therefore fully committed $1.8 billion to 35 countries. I am pleased to report, Your Excellencies, dear governors, that we have reached 10.5 million farmers and supported the production of 26 million metric tons of food, valued at $10.79 billion, or 90% of our target market value, and we still have about 2 seasons to go. Your Excellencies, dear governors, the African Development Bank is a strategic partner of choice, trusted by countries. Right here in Kenya, when I came to see His Excellency President Ruto, he talked about our support making a huge difference at the State House. As he mentioned to me, President Ruto mentioned to me that when I visited, he says, thanks to the African Development Bank, we increased the number of households in Kenya that have access to connectivity to electricity from 2.5 million to 10 million by 2023. Thank you for that testimony, Your Excellency, Mr. President. On one of my trips to a village where the bank supported last-mile connectivity for low-income households, a lady whose name was Grace, and that's not Grace, my wife, but she's also Grace, told us about the impact of our work. When asked if she knows Dr. Adeshina as I was walking in front of her, she said no. When asked if she was aware that the African Development Bank, as President Ruto was saying, financed the project, she said no. All I know is we once were in darkness, now we have light. Our impact is felt where it matters most, in the lives of the people we serve day and night. The African Development Bank has consistently invested in infrastructure. In the past 9 years, we have invested over $50 billion in infrastructure projects on the continent. By far the largest investment of any multilateral development bank or institution. And the impacts are visible. We are raising $3.2 billion for the East Africa Standard Gauge Railway connecting Tanzania, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Burundi. We are providing $500 million towards the development of the Lobito Corridor to link Zambia, Angola, and the DRC. We are mobilizing $375 million for financing the railway linking Nigeria to Niger Republic. We are mobilizing $3.5 billion to $5 billion towards the development of the Liberty Corridor that will link Liberia and Guinea. We have worked with our partners under the Africa Investment Forum to mobilize $15.6 billion of investment commitment towards the development of the Lagos-Abidjan corridor. Together with Africa 50, whose board I share, and is a great institution, we are mobilizing $630 million for the construction of the road and rail to link the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are financing the Guassib-Nado Highway in Morocco and the 1,000-kilometer highway linking Addis Ababa to Nairobi and Mombasa, which has expanded trade flows between Ethiopia and Kenya by 400%. That's who we are, a solutions and impact-driven bank. The African Development Bank, your bank, is in very strong financial shape. We have maintained our AAA rating, the only AAA-rated financial institution in Africa, by all global credit rating agencies. The bank posted strong financial records for the year 2023. First, income from loans and treasury investments increased from $775 million in 2022 to $1.73 billion in 2023, an increase of 123%. Second, the net income before distributions at $545 million is the largest ever in the history of the African Development Bank. Third, the amount that we allocate to reserve to build our liquidity buffers, $335 million, is also the highest ever in the history of the bank. I wish to thank the executive directors of the bank and their advisors, as well as my senior management and staff at the bank, for their hard work and efforts, and please join me in thanking them. Yet, as we make these efforts, we recognize that a lot more financing is needed to accelerate Africa's growth and development. The calls for reforms of the global financial architecture is necessary to mobilize even more financial resources to achieve Africa's sustainable development goals. The G20 Capital Adequacy Framework called for multilateral development banks to optimize their balance sheets, to raise more financing to support countries. The African Development Bank, Your Excellencies, our dear governors, ladies and gentlemen, heeded that call. We have been at the forefront of several financial innovations to achieve this. Last month, the African Development Bank issued a hybrid capital on the global capital market, the first ever by a multilateral development bank, creating a new global asset class for investors. These $750 million hybrid capital will be leveraged 3 to 4 times to expand the bank's lending capacity. I am delighted that 2 weeks ago, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, approved the use of the special drawing rights, SDRs, as hybrid capital, which is based on the proposal developed by the African Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. If the approved limit of $20 billion of the SDRs is channeled to multilateral development banks like us, we can leverage these to deliver at least $80 billion of new financial support. I would like to use this time to thank you, our heads of states and government, for the advocacy that you have maintained on this particular issue at every single step, and also for the chairman of the African Union Commission, my dear brother Musa Faki, for all of the advocacy that you have also maintained, and for all of our governors for supporting us in this particular area. We are very grateful. Thank you very, very much. Now, I wish to ask for the support of all of our shareholders to make this a reality. Your Excellencies, dear governors, ladies and gentlemen, to tackle climate change, the African Development Bank is well on its way to reaching our goal of mobilizing $25 billion in climate finance. Last year, we devoted 45% of our total lending to climate finance. Our climate action window, under 16th replenishment of the African Development Fund, with support from the governments of the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Germany, and Switzerland, opened its first call for proposals. The response was amazing. It received over 2,000 proposals, and the 359 shortlisted application requests were close to $4 billion. The bank, your bank, is building strong and effective global partnerships to deliver more for Africa. Through the support of the G7, we are accelerating women's access to finance through what we call the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, or AFAWA, in partnership with the Africa Guarantee Fund, which is now working with 169 financial institutions in 43 countries. And I would like to say that Africa will go faster when we make sure that it flies with 2 wings. No bird flies with 1 wing. When we support our women, they actually run most of our economies. I think Africa will go faster, more inclusively. AFAWA, Your Excellencies, their governance, is the first ever gender-focused collateralized significant risk transfer with counter guarantees provided by the governments of Netherlands and France in support of scaling of finance for women. So far, AFAWA has approved $1.7 billion and finance over 18,300 women-owned businesses. And by the end of this year, AFAR will have reached $2 billion in support of 30,000 women-owned small and medium-sized enterprises. Your Excellencies, their governors, to support youth entrepreneurship in Africa and to create youth-based wealth, the bank has established youth entrepreneurship investment banks in partnership with the French development agency, Agence Française de Développement, and other partners with support from the bank's multi-donor Youth Entrepreneurship Trust Fund. Ever since our board approved the first two Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks in Liberia with $16 million of funding several countries, including Nigeria, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire, Tunisia, Togo, Egypt, South Africa, Zambia, Botswana, DRC, are working on submissions of their request. Your Excellencies, the bank is working with several partners to ramp up support for digital and creative sectors to create more jobs. Together with Islamic Development Bank, and my brother Al-Jassar is here, and the Agence Française de Développement, we financed $618 million IDICE program called Initiative for the Development of Digital and Creative Enterprises in Nigeria that will create 6 million jobs and add $6.4 billion to the economy. The African Development Bank, Africa 50, and the African Union established what's called the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, or AGIA, which will mobilize $10 billion for green infrastructure in Africa and speed up Africa's green transitions. I am delighted that at the G7 Ministerial Conference in Italy just a few days ago, they gave global endorsement for AGIA. Together with the Islamic Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, the OPEC Fund, the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, the Africa Export and Import Bank, and the West African Development Bank, we are establishing what's called special agro-industrial processing zones in 11 African countries, including a $3 billion facility by the African Development Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, and the Arise platform. Your Excellencies, they ask us to work together as multilateral development banks, and we are doing that. At the spring meetings of the World Bank Group, President Ajay Banga and I launched a joint bold effort to connect 300 million people in Africa to electricity by 2030. We will host this year, together with Your Excellencies, an Africa Energy Summit later this year. I must say, this marks the first time for our institution. So not only are we reforming, but we are also changing how we work together as a system to deliver greater impacts at scale. That's because together we can and we will achieve more. Your Excellencies, for generations, women in Africa have borne the brunt of risks and hardships associated with cooking. Nothing could be more important than ensuring 1.2 billion people, majority of whom are women across Africa, have access to clean cooking solutions. I didn't start using glasses because I went to university and got smart. I started using glasses because as a kid I was blowing charcoal into the cooking stoves of my mother. And when she bought a cooker for which we can turn on the gas, it was blue, I had to invite my friends to come and see it. In fact, I was turning it on because of the smell, because it was so different from the kind of smell that I used to have. So when we are talking about energy transitions, that is the kind of transition some of us have gone through. And therefore, I believe no woman and no child should ever have to die from the risk associated with smoke inhalation and other hazards, because today we lose 300,000 women for trying to cook a decent meal. Another 300,000 of their kids dying for trying to cook a decent meal. Enough is enough. It's not just about lighting a stove, it's about life itself. It is about dignity for women. And it's about protecting the environment from massive deforestation and a reliance on biofuel, biomass, firewood, and charcoal. And that's why I was honored and privileged to co-chair the Clean Cooking in Africa Summit with Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the Republic of Tanzania, who did a marvelous job, His Excellency Jonas Thor, the Prime Minister of Norway, and Dr. Birol, the Executive Director of the International Development Bank, led the way by committing to provide $2 billion towards clean cooking solutions for women over the next 10 years. I am delighted that the summit in Paris raised an additional $2.1 billion in commitments, bringing the total commitments to clean cooking to $4.1 billion, a historic achievement and a testament to the power of partnerships. Thank you very much. I thank you, all our shareholders across all 81 member countries, for providing us the support and the resources we need to serve Africa better. With your continued support, we will drive a bolder, bigger, and better agenda for Africa. I thank you, our partners, for joining your hands with ours as we deliver more together for Africa and as we have done for the last 60 years. I thank you, our dear heads of states, your excellencies, heads of state and government, as you lead and as you show passion and commitment to the African Development Bank Group, to our continent, and for your generosity towards our efforts with you in your countries. I thank you, our boards of directors, for always mobilizing support for us in your countries and for relentless efforts you make to back our innovations and initiatives. I thank you, our boards of directors, for your strong oversight and support. And I thank you, my staff and colleagues, for being the best staff one could ever hope for. When I was recently interviewed, I was asked, what will I miss the most at the end of my 10-year term next year? I didn't have to think far. I said, my staff. So I'd like my staff to please stand. All my staff to stand. Guys, you're the best. Thank you for all that you do every single day. Please sit down. Together, let's all drive Africa's development forward, relentlessly, innovatively, and in more impactful ways. I remember when you elected me in 2015, I said at the time that this is not a job. This is a mission. After all, nothing could be more important than somebody being given the responsibility and the resources to go and change the place of our birth. So let's continue to make a difference, and let's continue to make Africa proud. Thank you all. God bless you all. Asante sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands once more together for the President of the African Development Bank. I'm sure by now you will agree with me with how I started by saying an evangelist. Now I can add the passionate evangelist for Africa's development. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to call upon His Excellency, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver his statement.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellencies, Head of State, Government and Delegations, Excellencies, former Head of State, Honorable Ministers, Dr. Hakim Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, distinguished representatives of African multilateral financial institutions, distinguished representatives of the diplomatic corps and development partners, ladies and gentlemen. It is with real pleasure that I address this august assembly gathered here for the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to President William Ruto, the government and the people of Kenya for the brotherly and warm welcome accorded to me in this beautiful and the large city of Nairobi, which has warmly accustomed me to it every time I return. Indeed, Nairobi has forged a formidable reputation as a premier hosting place for conferences at which key issues concerning the future of our continent are discussed. The African Union is grateful to you. I also wish to express my thanks to the President of the African Development Bank, my brother and friend, Dr. Hakim Adesina, whose passionate commitment to Africa's development, present and the future, has never wavered. Mr. President, thank you for your invitation to the African Union to this important meeting. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, cette rencontre se tient dans un contexte marqué par un enchevêtrement de crises géopolitiques et économiques, aggravé par ailleurs par les effets de la pandémie de la COVID-19, dont la rémanence est loin d'avoir encouragé la stabilité sociale et politique de